Good evening, everyone. I'm going to call to order the Town of Old Saybrook Zoning Commission meeting for Monday, April 21st, 2025, 7 p.m. Town Hall, first floor conference room at 302 Main Street, Old Saybrook. Roll call this evening is myself, Mark Caldarella, Chair. Seated for Jerry Lewis this evening is Casey Costello Hand, John Henry, our Secretary, and regular Commission members Laura Gray and Bob Friedman. We also have our Clerk Joanne Galley and our ZEO officer Chris Costa, and we have 7 online.
And Brenda.
And I'm sorry, Brenda, forgot you. And Brenda, our other alternate, is online. We have 8 people online, and we have 11 people in the audience. Minutes from our last meeting. I make a motion to approve from our meeting of Monday, March 17th, 2025. Seconded by John Henry. Are there any corrections, additions, or deletions? Not hearing any. Move to a vote. All those in favor signal by saying aye. Aye. Did you have a?
I move to accept the minutes as presented.
Okay. All those in favor? Aye. Thank you very much. Moving on to new business, we have, there's no correspondence any other than what is for this evening, correct? New business, Fenwick Ice Cream request for minor modification to a special exception permit to add outdoor seating for 5 picnic tables as an accessory use to 1,652 square foot food and beverage establishment, 855 Boston Post Road, map 36, lot 2, B2 district, pedestrian node, owner KAM Realty, agent Rick Fenwick, business owner, action review modification for possible action. Mr. Fenwick, welcome.
Thank you. It's not like I do these daily stuff like this guy. But yeah, so I provided maps and stuff that you can take a look at. Yeah, so that's what we're looking to do with some outside seating. I guess we're allowed to, but I'd like to have a few more than that.
Can you just speak up a little bit?
Yeah, I said I would like to. I said I guess I was allowed to have 2, but I think I was gonna need a little bit more than that. We'd like to have a few more, so we're looking to have 5 picnic tables outside in that area.
So the 5 picnic tables equate to your estimation of 20 seats, the way you've written it on the letter that you provided to us, correct?
Yeah.
And that was to accommodate your customers to enjoy their purchases outdoors as weather permits, as well as allowing walk-up or bicycle arrivals.
What I can tell you, what I noticed from when I was across the street, now that there's sidewalks and stuff, we have quite a few people that there's a lot of foot traffic downtown. I mean, if you sit, obviously when it's not busy, sit out there, you go, and just, and kids and stuff coming on bicycles and stuff. So there's a lot more to it since the sidewalks. It's amazing what I saw change in a 2-year time, of foot traffic, which is good. That's why the sidewalks went in,
Right.
Do commissioners have any questions for the applicant? Do the commissioners have any questions for the applicant?
My question stems from the agenda item as written. It's an accessory use to 1,652 square foot food and beverage establishment. In section 53, under outdoor seating, part B, retail establishment. A retail establishment will be permitted to have outdoor seating as an accessory use on the property where the retail business is located, with the purpose of the seating is for the consumption of food purchased at retail on the premises, such as ice cream or prepackaged foods not prepped on the premises. A maximum of 2 tables and 8 chairs or 2 picnic tables are permitted per retail business. I see 5. How do we get from the 2 that are specified as permitted to 5 picnic tables?
So
That's why I'm here.
the special exception permit that was originally pulled for this property was done by the property owner. And they completed the improvements to that in 2013 or 14. And at the time, they came to the zoning commission and wanted the flexibility for either retail, office, or restaurant. So this originally started as retail ice cream, but then the applicant said, well, there was a food and beverage establishment permit, which would allow for the extra seating and also allow for indoor seating inside, so that they could have people with tables, or people sitting at tables and in the colder, rainy weather and the outdoors. So it started as retail, but they're actually calling themselves a food and beverage establishment, which is consistent with that previous special exception permit. So that would allow them to have the additional outdoor seating as proposed.
So see on the sketch that there are 5 picnic tables, and then there would not be more than 5. Only 5.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking for.
I have a question. No, about bollards or heavy planters.
Right.
What's your plan?
I haven't decided which I'm gonna do. I think it would be planners, because I don't like the look of it that way.
Bollards, planters, sufficient to protect the people.
No, I think it says they're heavy
Heavy plant.
Concrete.
No, I was thinking.
Any question? Is it also in section 53, the record under outdoor seating, after section B, is the zoning commission in its discretion may permit a business to exceed the permitted number of outdoor seats by no more than 50 feet, in addition to the approved number of outdoor seats allowed as of right as a special exception. When at a minimum, the business can demonstrate that 1 parking space is provided for every 3 outdoor seats, or that there is adequate parking or bicycle, boat, pedestrian traffic in the area that additional parking spaces are necessary. So it's also at the discretion of the commission.
That's, I was, that there's such a amount of foot traffic now, right, on Boston Post Road, because of the sidewalks.
Currently, you believe that 20 indoor seats? No. No? What is it?
I think it's 15.
15? Spell it out here, but 15 would be the number. You also make a note, there's 2 others, markings on the plan that you gave us. At the back of the picnic tables, there's a dotted line and it says fence plus or minus 80 feet. What's that
Yeah, well,
defining?
I mean, because the way it looks back there, because that's not very appealing. And what I was explained to me is that you have to keep it natural growth, so I thought I was fencing to make the area be a little more pleasurable. There's rotted out trees and stuff that are falling down, but I was told I can't do anything. I thought the next way to make the area.
You plan to put fencing up at some point? Is that what it is? What type of fencing are you contemplating?
I haven't really figured that out, whether I was going to put a vinyl.
Okay. You have another indication here circled, looks like an indication of 20 feet. What is that
Yeah, it's 20 by 8.
the space where the picnic tables are?
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Did you cover outdoor speakers? If there's
No, I didn't.
Oh, there's supposed to have music indoors, and, I think that's it, indoor music. But there, as a condition of approval, we would say no outdoor speakers.
Right.
So the music stays in the building. And then, there's a paragraph here that says, temporary stick in the ground signs, A-frame signs, and feather flag signs are not permitted or allowed under this permit. Not only are they not permitted or allowed, they're expressly prohibited in our regulation. So it's even more than not allowed. Where you see them, they're prohibited, and the zoning enforcement officer will eventually get to having them removed. So don't spend your money.
I know I've gotten the letters over the years, believe
Don't
me.
spend the money on the
But,
signs.
but what I can tell you, what's been the game changer about that is that, with the internet, it amazes me, the people that get off the 95 corridor to come into Old Saybrook. I hired a social media girl last year, and I can look at you all and say I was guilty putting signs around town. And what people don't understand about it is that we start a small business to try to serve the community, and you have no idea what it takes to get people into your store. My son and I opened that ice cream shop because of what we thought there wasn't a good ice cream shop in Old Saybrook 7 years ago, and that's why we did it. And that business actually lost money for 3 years, but I was determined to make it go because of my son. And I can tell you this, we stuck it out, but we're pretty much a staple in the community now because of the quality ice cream we have. But what I had to go through to get there, it was pretty tough. But again, that has all changed now with social media. It's unbelievable how it works. So that's why the sign thing has kind of vanished.
And the drawing of the site, there's in the landscape island, that's technically off-site in the right of way. There's a closed drop box. It's shown a clothing donation box.
That's
That's
not
been
on our
removed.
property, no.
That's been
It
removed.
already has been
It's there, but
removed.
it's next
It
door.
says
It's not-
TBR.
it's
Oh,
not-
it's
yeah.
the adjoining property.
Yeah, there's one there, but it's not
Right.
that one.
In addition to the CLMP pole that's in the right of way,
Mhm.
on the property, in the lower right corner of this drawing, it says there's a light. What kind of light is that?
I don't know how to describe it to you, but it's been there since the 70s.
The street.
Been there since the
Yeah,
seventies.
street, it's been there since the 70s.
Right.
Yeah,
And we have, is it an otherwise allowable light under today's regulations? Or
Pre-existing non-conformity that would not be allowed today.
yeah.
pre-existing non-conforming, even if previously approved?
Any other?
That's it.
Casey?
So just so I'm clear, so you will have about 20 indoor seats?
No,
Oh,
15.
15, right, okay, so 15 indoor and a max of 20 outdoor. Have about 20 parking spaces,
yeah, there's 20.
20 parking spaces,
Yeah.
okay, so you have one parking space for every 2 seats, even if every single seat's being used, essentially, more than that. Okay, and you find that typically when people are occupying more of the outdoor area, I assume that means they're not congregating as much at the indoor seats because it's
Exactly.
nice out, so everyone
Well,
wants to.
you know, I can give you my experience from being across the street for 7 years at
Yeah.
Johnny Ads, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, people don't want to sit in, they come, they want to sit outside.
Right, right,
That's what we're all about, you know?
yeah,
I mean, you know, living here, you don't realize that you're a vacation of communities, and it amazes me. We have an ice cream cone, the kids, they go over, they hug it, they kiss it, they take their pictures, the family take their pictures in front of it. It's not a little deal, it's a big deal to people, you know?
Yeah.
So, you know, the outside is pretty important, you know?
yeah, that's what I really.
And it's just been my experience next door, there. I think there's 21 picnic tables over there, you know, and there's people use it.
Absolutely.
So, yeah,
Okay, thank you.
you have no, thank you.
Any other? Nothing? Okay, not hearing any additional questions. I guess we'll move on to a motion. Bob, do you want to make the motion?
We agreed on the conditions of approval, would it include,
No outdoor speakers
right,
and either bollard or,
heavy
heavy
planters?
planters
Right, yeah.
and maximum of 5, picnic tables, 20 seats.
Okay. I'll make a motion to approve Fenwick Ice Cream request for minor modifications to a special exception permit to add outdoor seating for not more than 5 picnic tables as an accessory use to the food and beverage establishment, and that the picnic tables be separated from the parking area by bollards or other protection. And that there would be no outdoor speakers for any music that may or may not be inside the building.
Is there a second?
Second motion.
Seconded by John Henry. Any further discussion? Not hearing any, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor signal by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, abstained, passes 5-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Rest of your,
You too.
yes, and we should be open soon.
Good. Moving on to section 5, public hearings. A, Whispering Winds, application for site plan approval for affordable housing development. 830G to construct 12 dwelling units, 21,446 square foot, and retain existing 2,453 square foot family dwelling and a 1,274 square foot appliance repair business at 846 Middlesex Turnpike, Assessors Map 63, Lot 5, Restricted Business B3 District. Applicant is Ontario Oliveira. Agent is Attorney Casella. Our action is to open public hearing, decision by May 5th, 2025, or no later than May 6th of 2025. Attorney Casella, welcome.
Hi, good evening, Ed Casella. And Whispering Winds LLC for the development of the property at 846 Middlesex Turnpike. Tonight, Joe Wren, project architect, Craig Laliberty are also here to discuss the engineering and the architecture for this proposal. This is the property located on the east side of Middlesex Turnpike, 1.25 acres. It's actually in the B3 and partially in the AA1 zone. It's bounded on the north and east by B&L Construction, and on the south by 2 residential use properties. Currently improved with a single family residence and then a 1,300 square foot retail appliance shop. This is an application under 8-30G for the construction of an additional 12 units. The units will be constructed in 2 rows of 6 units, townhouse style. The units are going to be between 1,480 square feet and 1,522 square feet, 2-story. Under 830G and the affordability plan that we provided, 4 of the units are required to be affordable. So what that means is 2 of the units will be rented or sold to individuals who make 60% of the median income, and 2 of the units will be rented or sold to individuals who make 80% of the median income. And using 2024 figures, which is what we had available at this time of submission, estimated sales prices are $164,000 for the 60% units and $258,000 for the 80% units. And estimated rents are $1,216 for the 16% units and $1,620 for the 80% units. And if you're familiar with current market rates, getting rents at $1,200 or $1,600 or prices of $165,000 or $260 are very much below market for new construction, 1,500 square foot places, and are affordable. Hence, what 830G offers to developers and property owners like Mr. Oliveira. And because we submitted under 830G, the commission denies the application or imposes conditions, it then has the burden to demonstrate that the reason for the denial or the conditions imposed are related to a significant public health and safety concern that outweighs the need and the benefits of affordable housing. Joe and Craig will go through in more detail the specifics of the site plan and the buildings. But to bring you up to speed as to where we are in the application flow, we've gone to ARB, and they had a stipulation that requested additional gables be provided on the southern side of the building, closer to the retail appliance repair shop. So that has been completed and are shown on the plans that Craig will go through, the ones updated through March 17th. We went to the planning commission, who determined the development consistent with the plan of conservation and development. We've received correspondence from Jeff Jacobson and the fire chief with concerns. We've in part responded, but have open action items with both engineering and fire department review, and are still waiting on sign off from CRAD. So what we're requesting the commission to do is open the public hearing, hear what we have to say, answer any questions. But we know this will be continued until the next meeting, which I think is on May 5th. So we're not asking for any action tonight, just to present, see what questions are out there. So with that, I'll turn it over to Joe, and I can share my screen and bring up this plan. Move over here, maybe over here. And we go outside. Yeah, you can do it, yeah. Sure. Better. There you go. There you go.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. For the record, Joe Run, professional engineer of Indigo, here in town. I've been working on this project for a little while now. Ed went through most of the existing site conditions. Ed, can we expand it a little bit?
Yeah.
Got it. Didn't respond on.
It's just.
Can we make it large, full screen, helping?
Oh, I can't do that.
You close, did you do that?
Yeah.
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 That's why I did that time. I just wanted to get it fixed.
Yeah.
I didn't want to see that. There we go. That's better. Thank you. So just for site orientation purposes, Middlesex Turnpike is here on the left side of the plan, or on the left side of the site. Beach Appliance Shop is located here and will remain. It's currently going under a little bit of a renovation, changing out the windows and so forth in the front of that building. And then the existing single family home is up in the northwest corner, right at this location, which would also remain. There is another building that's kind of like a garage workshop in the back over in this general vicinity. You can kind of see the hatch line on your plans up there. Obviously, that building will be demolished and removed from the site. Adjacent to the south, as Ed had mentioned, there are a couple residential properties, and then to the east and the north is B&L Construction, their active quarry operation over in that area. There's no public water up here on this side of town, so we have two wells out in the front. These little squares up in this area, that one, and on the other side, those are well houses. They're made to kind of mimic the architecture of the buildings themselves. Greg will show you that momentarily. And that's where the signage, Whispering Winds signage and address located on the fronts of those, those well houses. Inside there will be a drilled well in each one. And each well will serve one of the buildings, one of the new buildings, and then one or two of the existing buildings, so that no well serves more than 25 or more than 24 persons, which is required by public health. In the center of the site, this is not the utility plan, but generally under this parking area here is where the septic systems will go. There will be one system for each 6-unit building, so 2 systems for that. Beach Appliance is on its own separate system already. That existing will remain. And then the existing house has its own existing system, of course, too, but that one will be replaced as part of this project also. So entering in, right now, there are multiple driveway cuts here. There's one up on the northwest corner here. There's another one kind of in the center, and then there's a driveway curb cut right out in front of Beach Appliance. In front of Beach Appliance, that's essentially going to stay the same. Repaved, and there was a comment that the parking spaces there should be striped. They're not currently striped, so we would do that. We would eliminate the northwest curb cut. This is a state highway, so of course we need DOT approval after town approval. But the main curb cut is as shown here in the center of the site. And for the single family home and the 12 units, everything will be accessed through that main central one with plenty of sight line. The road is flat, straight alignment in that area. We have plenty of sight line in both directions, more than what's required by DOT. So building one, each building consists of 6 units. The building one is the first one that you see on the right-hand side. That's the one that had the gables added on the south side that Ed had mentioned. Since it's the most visible from the road, especially approaching from south to north along the roadway. Each building is numbered, or each unit is numbered, and the shaded ones are the affordable units. And here we have to kind of designate, with Ed's affordability plan, we kind of have to designate which ones are the affordable. So you can see units 1 and 4 in that first building, the shaded blue ones, and then what would be unit 8 and 10, I presume, in the upper building there shaded blue. And then the pink shaded one is an adaptable unit, which means that it could be adapted to be handicap accessible. The handicap accessible parking space is right outside of that unit, right there. So it can easily be accessed from that aisle over the sidewalk. If needed, a ramp could be in place at the steps and accessed from the same elevation. All the units have, well, the front ones, I should say, the front building one, they have a garage, a 1-car garage, and then they have a parking space in front of the garage. That's true for 5 of the 6 units. Correctly, one on first unit does not have a garage, is that correct?
Yes.
And then the other 5 do have garages, and then we have parking spaces in front of the garage. The back unit is all accessible by foot. So you would park in this parking lot here and then come down the sidewalk and access the units that way. All of the units on the back side to the rear of the units have a patio, and they also have a privacy screen wall. So you can see along the edges, there's a privacy screen wall just to separate people and conversations and so forth, and provide a little bit of sense of privacy. The little backyard areas, some common spaces back here, we kind of designated this yellow shaded space in the back is common space, which could be a variety of horseshoe pits, whatever it might be, bocce court, whatever it might be, but some type of communal space, back there in that location. For zoning, as Ed said, we're under the 8-30G statute. But the two new buildings do meet all of the applicable yard setbacks, in the zone. So we're not pushing anything right up against the property line. They do meet the general setbacks for the area. For landscaping, you can see we tried to use some colors, on the plan. You can see the green shaded trees. We have our street trees and we have other ornamental trees in front of the units. And then we have a perimeter buffer of the thuja, giant green arborvitaes all along the southeast, south property line, east property line, and then up along the north property line. Stormwater on the site, of course, will be increasing the impervious, so stormwater is all collected on site. The site is underlain by beautiful sand with very, very deep groundwater table. So it's very excellent for infiltration into the soil below and well water recharge. So we have in the front of the site by the road, we have a small dry well over in this area for some of that recharge, but then to the north of building 2 up in this area, we have a large underground infiltration gallery system, which the majority of the site, probably about 90% of the site drainage, all self-contained, nothing goes off site. Everything goes to that facility and it holds up to and beyond the 100-year storm event. So all the water that hits the site, again, it's a relatively small site, right? It's an 8.4, but everything that hits the site, drains to our drainage system, goes to this infiltration gallery system and recharges the groundwater. So a lot of low impact development type of things here with overland flow, some reduction of curb, collection of drainage, and then groundwater recharge. Lighting, again, we went through ARB already, so all the yellow shaded symbols on the plan are either post lights, of course, if they're on the edges of the parking, or in the islands along the sidewalks, and then the any sconce type along the front of the garages are also shown in yellow shaded. There are sconces on building 1 on the front by the garages, and building 2 on the south side. There are covered entryways, so those are soffit lighting. So you don't see any yellow symbols there because they're under the soffit, under the roof of the covered porch. I think that covers most of the site elements. We have to go to DOT, but they require us to get town and local approval first before we can go to them. We got some preliminary comments from them. And they had some comments on the wells. Since the wells were close to the state highway, we had to provide at least 80 feet of casing on the wells. The standard that they have. So we've already incorporated that into the plan. But as far as final DOT approval, that will come after we get local approval. There was also a photometrics plan, I believe, for lighting that was part of the package, and there's no like trespass anywhere. Everything is dark sky compliant, full cutoff. Where applicable, the lights are at least 5 feet from the edge of the parking. And, again, even though it's 8-30G, we tried to stay as close to the zoning regulations as possible. All the lights are no more than 14 feet from the finished grade, flush bases, and at least 5 feet from the pavement edges. So we have a lot of the bases covered. So with that, I'll turn it over to Craig and I'll let him go through the buildings, show you the buildings, and if you have any questions out there. Question?
Are there existing wells here that are being abandoned?
Yes, good question. There's a well approximately in this location. If you look close enough on the plan, you probably see it somewhere by the cursor there. That serves the appliance shop and the existing house. It's probably on the utility plan. And not on the zoning site plan, but it's somewhere in that location, and it's a relatively newer well. And it has good clean water that doesn't need to be treated, and it has an excellent yield as well.
Yeah, for the record, Craig Albury, representing Whispering Winds LLC tonight. Yeah, I apologize for some people, I guess, had not received architectural, so I probably will. I have, a generic set of architecturals here. This shows the front of the buildings, which is what I probably will show right now. What we are doing, as Ed and Joe had mentioned, is we're proposing 2 new 6-unit buildings. The existing structure will remain as is and will be the 13th unit. Therefore, we need 4 affordable housing units, which Joe has designated on his site plan. As far as the units go, each unit is a townhouse unit. It will have bedrooms on the 2nd floor, over the 1st floor, except on the A-type units, which Joe again showed as adaptable, and also on the ends of building number 2, which will have Cape-style homes with a master bedroom on the 1st floor. We're proposing 5 units with garages, and 4 of the units will be interior units. That will be these 4. And then the 3 that have master bedrooms on the 1st floor would be the Cape-style units. Each of the units, as Ed had mentioned, is 1,400 to 1,550 square feet or so. The master bedroom downstairs is 1,500 and something. The garage units are 15, a little over 1,500, and the center units are 1,422 square feet. The exterior material will be a vinyl siding. It will be all vinyl trim. It will be asphalt roof shingles, which we are proposing right now. As far as ARB goes, and their comments were, they wanted gables added towards the beach commercial style building, which is also on the site, which I'll show you in a second. Well, what we did is we added these gables on the front, on the backs of building number 1. You see there the privacy fences that we have between separating the yards and things. There will be step downs to patios that exist on each of the units. There will be a vinyl solid fence across the rear of that building, separating it from the beach and from the units themselves. As far as the exterior lighting, everything has gone through ARB. It's all dark sky compliant, which Joe had mentioned, dark sky friendly. We propose to have post lanterns on the exterior. As far as the soffit lighting, we will be under every entrance way. So that therefore it's all washing down on the front entrance doors, and again will be dark sky friendly. As far as the units go, we have a 2-hour division wall between each unit. That makes these single family attached dwelling units. So there's a 2-hour fire assembly between each of these units. Again, that's to escape different requirements as far as the sprinkler systems go, as far as everything goes. We are now dividing this building into 6 segments. Therefore, each stands alone as a single family attached dwelling unit. As far as the pump house goes, this is what's flanking the entrances on the site. This will have a stone veneer down on the wainscoting down below. It will also have cedar impression vinyl siding and vinyl trim up above, asphalt shingles to match the existing structures that we're proposing, and then a cupola on the top of each pump house. That will be flanking both sides of the entranceway, and our signage will be mounted on the buildings, on the pump houses. This is the new beach building. What we're proposing is the stone up to a veneer, a stone veneer up to the wainscots height of 4 feet, and a stone ledger on the top, and then siding up above, and then trim across the existing roof that currently exists there now. We have side posts and pillars. Everything will be vinyl. All of the windows are vinyl clad. And I believe Tony is putting in, the windows as we speak. So I think that a lot of the renovation has been done there. That's my presentation. If there's any questions or whatever, and again, I apologize for you not getting, some of you people I know did not receive the architecturals, which have been completed, by the way. Okay, thank you.
I think that's it. If you have any questions, we'd be happy to answer.
Commissioners, you have questions?
I have a question regarding the arrow that splits to 3 at the end where it's referring to a proposed back stairs, pervious patio, or deck as determined by owner and a screening wall. One question is, if there are stairs, then there is no patio or
No, the stairs
deck
go from the first floor, depending on the grade issues. We're stepping down to a surface patio. So those will be pavers or whatever, is elected to be put down there as a finish. It will not be decks.
Well, no, I
Well,
think
it's not structured as decks.
what the reason it's a little bit open-ended, in the past, condos, when people want to do renovations to condos 20 years from now, they have to come back to the zoning commission for permission to convert a patio to a deck, for example. So the way we structured this plan is that it can either be a patio or a deck. And that's all baked into the coverage calculation.
right, so if it were a patio sits on the ground and the edge of the blocks is the edge of the patio.
Yes,
If the deck is to sit on the same square footage of ground, then the walking surface of the deck is the limit of the dimensions of the deck, if it coincides with the same limit of the patio. If you were to hang railings on the outside of the walking surface, then the deck is bigger than the patio. So we'll stipulate that the deck will be no bigger than the dimensions for the patio shown here.
that's the intention.
The width of the stairs, there are no stairs shown on any of these.
Yeah,
So
they're
we-
there,
I think they're there.
they're close to the building.
What's the width of this, of the
There's
print?
only like two sets, right?
Yeah,
Pointed out on the
9
screen.
inches, 9-inch minimum.
How wide are the stairs?
How wide? I think he shows them as,
They have a slider now.
yeah.
So it's probably 6 feet.
Pardon?
6 feet wide probably, because there's a sliding door. So usually they're 6 feet wide and then
Well,
maybe 11 or 12
Well,
inches each.
if this is 1 and 20, it's tough to scale, but it didn't look like it was quite 3 feet wide.
No, they are. I could see them.
If you see, if you look up at the
It's
screen.
just gotta meet the building code for stairs and
Yes.
Yeah,
all that.
If you're
right?
gonna zoom in on it, you'll see that there.
you can see here,
This-
they're pretty wide. This is 2 stairs here, this,
Yeah, and that deck is shown as 10 by 10, I believe. Or the patio is shown as 10 by 10, so.
So part of the stairs are out open to the sky and part of them are under the eave.
correct.
And the snow then that falls off the roof falls on the stairs.
That's correct.
Okay. In this shaded area, there, the golden area to the right of the building,
Yes,
what does the yellow golden color refer to?
it's common area, proposed common area for the condominium.
Right, and what kind of is that grass or what kind of a surface?
Grass,
Grass, okay.
correct. Just trying to think ahead of, where residents can congregate.
Bob, to the east of here is B and L's quarry with the large lake, the quarry pond back there. So there are 2 benches there. They're called out on the plan in that grass area. And they look to the east, so they overlook that pond in the distance from them. That's the,
For the zoning enforcement officer, the plans show the Connecticut River Gateway Conservation Zone on the right or eastern side of the property. Or is that, it doesn't coincide with our town zoning map at that location. Is that just because the map is such a different scale?
I'm assuming it's because it's a different scale, yes,
The,
but
the,
I can
the
verify.
town zoning map doesn't show the Connecticut River Gateway Conservation Zone in the B3 district. So I just will check on that. The width of the entrance drive for the residential uses at the curb line, not the property line.
the throat is 24 feet, and then I believe that Ed, you could zoom in on that. Yeah. It depends on what those return radii are, so trucks could turn in and out on the asphalt. When Ed zooms in, I'll tell you what those are.
I asked because in section 62.2.5 vehicular access drive for apron width, that's part F. The access drive in commercial or industrial districts will not be more than 30 feet at the right of way and 55 feet at the curb line. This appears to my scale to be more than 55 feet at the curb line.
So if we're 24 width, and then you add the 20 for that radius, so that's 44, and then 15 for the other radius, so it would be 59 feet at the curb line. And that's most likely what DOT would require to get trucks in and out. Garbage trucks. And fire trucks.
It would change the radius slightly if it were limited to 55 feet instead of what's shown here.
Yeah, the south one is less critical than the north one. You can see the blue dashed lines on there are the wheel paths for the garbage truck. So the south radius, again, we don't have to meet that zoning regulation, right? But in the interest of meeting as much as we can, that 15 could be probably changed to an 11 and it would meet the 55 feet. Because we only need 4 feet less. We have 59 and you have maximum 55 on it.
We also need to run templates for the largest fire truck, so. If the largest fire truck requires more than 55 feet. I think you would prefer that versus compliance with the regs. And so we'll come back to you on that.
When you're back on the 50, you'll have that detail figured out.
Yes. Yeah, we're working with a code consultant right now. As far as all those items, fire safety items.
So the blue lines are where the
Trash.
trash truck is gonna go. This is one trash.
Those are the various wheel paths for a trash truck to access, enter and exit the site, yes.
There's only one trash container. It's right
Yes.
in the middle of the buildings.
Correct. Yep. It's a full trash enclosure, 3-sided with the gates in the front.
I was curious to know what you're doing with unit 13, the currently residential house, and also the repair shop.
So the repair shop is going to stay as beach appliance
Oh, the
for the
repair.
time being, yes,
Okay.
correct. The single family house will remain a single family house, but it will be one of the units in Whispering Winds.
Okay.
That's
So,
why it's labeled unit 13, the 12
Right.
units plus that one, unit 13.
okay,
We're required by E30G to have at least 30% affordable. So 30% times 13 is 3.9 or rounded to 4 units.
Okay.
Just quickly, maybe I missed it, the areas that are neither asphalt nor called out as specific landscaped areas, those will be grassed, is that,
Yes, there will be some sort of
Accurate.
landscaping, yes.
okay,
Generally lawn. the crosshatch, on the site plan that you see the specifically called out areas that you mentioned, those would probably be mulch, like where the trees are and so forth. Mulch, flowers, annuals, perennials, things like that.
Okay. And for the retaining wall that's proposed, again, maybe I just missed it, but what is the top of wall and bottom of wall?
It's
At the
fairly
height.
shallow. I think we have that on here. It might be on the next plan, the grading plan. So the site plan after the zoning plan is utility and the grading plan. We try to break them up. There's a lot going on, especially when you superimpose all the utilities on there.
Yes.
So this plan has the grading and it has the utility. It's just zooming in, so my old eyes, I see the numbers.
It looks like it's like fingerprints on the top of the wall.
And the,
Yeah, it's like 3 or 4 feet if I recall, but these numbers will tell us specifically. See it.
46 and 50,
Yeah,
is
there's
that
a,
right?
yep, 46 and 50. Yep, your eyes are better than that.
It's just closer.
Yeah, that's the maximum. So at that point, in the middle of the maximum of 4 feet, and it peters down to 2.5 feet maybe.
Okay. And last question, the fire department's comments, have we been able to address those?
We just got those, I think, last Thursday, maybe Wednesday, and then town hall will close on Friday. So like I just said a few minutes ago, we're working with a fire code consultant on that. These are, we'll get into the details at the next meeting, but this, the way this is, and Craig described it, is that these are townhomes. So they're like single family homes connected. They're not like apartment buildings where you have one on top of the other and so forth. So if a bottom one burns, it burns the next one above it as well. Here, they're all, the way it's explained to me is it's like a single family home just connected to other single family homes.
So are
So
they,
you have the 2-hour fire rating between.
okay, so they're fire rated, and so does that make a difference in terms of apparatus
It does.
access?
It makes a difference on what code applies
Okay,
and what things are required and what things aren't required.
okay,
So that's why we brought the code consultant in to go through those specific codes and tell us what we have to do and what we don't. have to do.
Okay.
Or what code applies and what doesn't.
Have you reached out to the fire marshal?
We'll reach out to the fire marshal, well, we're gonna reach out to the fire chief because he provided comments. We suspect the fire marshal probably didn't have many comments because the code doesn't apply. Because it's essentially single family residential, but we plan to meet with them both next week if we can. Yeah.
So before our May 5th meeting, you intend to meet with both parties and
Of
have,
course, have revised plans and have met with both parties.
and have that, okay? Because Joe Johnson's letter that he sent all of us obviously has to do with public health and safety.
Understood.
And that's a concern. So that's.
A lot of those comments apply to if these weren't single family attached townhomes. So that's what we're starting to iron out right
But you also have the water question that you raised too, that you need to
now.
discuss.
And we
with
have
us.
some responses for
Right,
that.
I'm sure you do.
It'll be
Just
already-
want to have that information.
We talked about it today, and we're gonna work more with our code consultant, and then we're gonna set up a meeting with Joe, go through what is acceptable and what is not. We all want a safe project, so
Sure.
and we'll make sure that we comply.
And then you have not yet had the time, I believe, to respond to Mr. Jacobson's latest.
So we did, and
Well, is there a newer one?
No, it was
No.
received last week, so I'm looking for.
Oh, what's the
holiday.
date on that?
That was the original 5-page.
April, there's an April, Mr. Jacobson's is March 28th.
Yeah, we responded April 11th to that.
April 11th.
Yeah,
There's no other responses from,
No, because we
Mr.
didn't have the
Jacobson.
revised plans till
Okay.
last week, so.
excuse me for asking you, which will be asking Mr. Jacobson. for his
well, a
response
week
to
ago,
this.
last Friday, we submitted 18 more copies of all the plans
yeah.
in response to that. So that's now 10 days or so since that required.
I didn't see on the plan on sheet one, snow, where snow removal will be placed. I couldn't find it. If it's there, can you help me?
Usually we show that, but we also wanted to be a little clear. So, this is the site plan, the zoning site plan. Yeah, that's. We could add that, obviously, it can be around the perimeter of the parking lot. Where it makes most sense. Usually we shade those in like a blue dot and we can do that for you to. So you can easily, depict those areas.
I also didn't see any, wayfinder signs on property after the entrances. Is there going to be?
We weren't really planning on any. We have the mailboxes, which are obvious where you go in. There is the address on the entrance sign, and once you get in there, the units will have their numbers on them. Like 1 to 6 and 7 to 12. Pretty straightforward.
And, public health hasn't issued an approval just yet.
Public Health gave us a review. They just had some very minor comments. Again, we submitted that 10 days ago, and obviously vacation week last week and so forth. We're awaiting that final approval. We should have that this week.
Do you also, plan on providing a parking table?
It's on it.
There is?
It's at the bottom of the zoning table. Last line, 30 required, 34 provided.
Oh, it's written, okay. I was looking for a separate block, sorry. Okay.
Nope. Note 8. So yeah, note 8, it's the last line of the table, and then I think note 8, explains it all.
Any other questions?
On the parking surface in the northwest corner of the lot, there's a long landscape island that runs north and south along 7 parking spaces close to the existing house. Why is that not continued to connect to the other landscaped areas, since there's not enough space for any vehicle to travel?
We're allowing water runoff to flow through. You see
Better
that?
skateboarding?
What's that?
Better skateboarding around the island?
Sure. We'll watch you, you can do your thing.
Why is the landscaping not connected to the other landscaping?
Because then we would need more catch basins. We're trying to create that overland flow. Doesn't really warrant additional catch basins there. You have to have a certain separating distance to from any septic system component to any drainage system component. So this allows a break in the curb line for the water to get from one side of the
Flow
curb to
through the gap.
Correct. Yep. Just like behind Liv's Oyster Bar, you'll see that a lot over there is one place that I've seen similar, so.
Casey, did you have a question?
Yeah, was any I know the 4 spaces in front of the repair shop that back out onto Route 154 are pre-existing non-conforming. But now that we're adding more traffic onto the site, was any so I understand those will be coming in and out of a different driveway, but in close vicinity to those 4 spaces. So was any consideration given to any other options to address or sort of remediate that issue, or could it
It's
be?
more of a DOT issue and their preliminary review, they only asked us to strike them.
Okay,
To strike the spaces, that was just because it's an pre-existing grandfathered condition.
correct, okay,
It's not ideal, but if we combine those somehow with the other spaces, it would be too far to walk in between. It just wouldn't be convenient. There are really no customers that go there. That's really just their office. So there's really no public that go there. People that go there are working there and they understand how to get in and out per se. And they're not to be used really by anybody else. That's for the total that we need on site, but it's people who live in the units aren't gonna park there.
okay. And I noticed that there are 2 spaces, one adjacent to guess it's the single space to the west, sort of west end of the parking.
In front of unit one.
In front of unit one, yes, and then the other where there are the two spaces across the way, both of those encroach it, or there's one on each side that kind of encroaches into the front landscaped area, which I understand you don't have to comply with all the zoning regulations, but I'm just wondering if that, the proximity to the road and the entrance presents any issues, or if those, I mean, it looks like those two on the north side could just be shifted a little bit without much.
We could probably slide
Trouble.
those. We could probably slide those over. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we could slide the ones to the north. The one on the south side in front of unit one, I think
Right there.
if we slid that over, I think that would affect the entryway, right?
It would, yes.
Okay.
Unless we moved the road, you know, and made it non-conforming to the zone.
But so we can look into sliding the ones on the north side, but not the one on the south side. But the upgraded street landscaping there, even though again, we're not required to do it with the trees and the landscaping, it'll present much nicer than it does today.
Good question, on the, and exit, you will have a stop bar
Yep, that's shown.
thing?
Um,
Okay, will you have a stop sign there?
The DOT will require breakaway post, 30-inch stop sign, that's on there. Right where Ed's showing, and that the dark line is the stop bar, and then the painted center line too, that goes down.
You get those?
So I just have a number of questions. So to clarify, building number one is ownership, no garages.
No, building number one has 5 garages.
Yeah,
So which building are the owner and rental units all in?
No, it's really undefined as to what's owner versus rental. I think ideally they'd all be rental. That's what the plan is, but if that doesn't work economically, then he wants to reserve the right to sell some units. So whether they're owned or rented isn't defined at this point, but we left the option for both in the affordability plan.
So if there's owner occupied, you'll have an equal distribution of owner occupied, or I'm saying ownership affordable versus rental?
Right now, it's proposed that there's 2 affordables in each of the 6 units.
Okay.
And my understanding is if any are sold, it would be a block that's sold. Like, for example, the 6 units in the rear without the garages. I think would be the ones that would be sold. And so that would provide an equal allocation of rented versus sold. But I'm not sure that's something that you can do from a zoning perspective.
I'm
The way
just,
it's probably going to work out, if there is.
I
a
guess I'm
split.
just asking about the sizes, of the units. So for example, you've got 4 affordable units.
Yep.
And out of those 4, only one of them has a garage amenity. Out of the 4, you do have there's only 2 unit As,
And one of them's
there's-
affordable.
and there's no accessible units for affordable. So you have units that are adaptable. Or one unit that's adaptable for handicapped access, but no handicapped access or accessible access for the affordable. That's correct? I'm just trying to get some clarification. here.
Yeah, I mean, we're only required to have one adaptable unit, it doesn't need to be an affordable unit. And we have 3 units with first floor masters, one of those is affordable. So that's arguably more than we need to do. So we tried to come up with a mix that we believe was equitable. 1 garage, 1 first floor. And then 2 in the rear.
So the common area, is that only for ownership or is that for ownership and rental?
That's for ownership and rental.
And you've retained DeMarco? Or at this point to do your management?
Not
plan?
officially, but
We still have to go through the affordability documents. I'm just trying to.
Yep.
Get some of these questions answered ahead of time.
And these portable units at the 60 and the 80% would be distributed evenly across the two different sized dwelling units? Or would they all be in the smaller dwelling unit size?
Let me see.
Because the plans, say for
Yeah.
both of these buildings, 6 units with all 2-bedroom units, 12 bedrooms total. Says that for both.
Yeah, so
And yet, one of the buildings with 6 units has the inside 4 units are smaller than any of the 6 on the other building, so.
sure.
Just want to make sure that those 4 aren't all of the affordable units being the smaller.
No, right now we have two units that have 1,482 square feet. One of those is affordable.
Right,
We have units that are 1,522 square feet. One of those is affordable. And then we have units that are 1,508 square feet. 2 of those are affordable.
okay,
So again, we try to vary them across the different types.
So for the units without garages, what do they do for storage?
There's a basement.
They
Basement?
all have basements.
Yeah.
I have a question. Why wouldn't the adaptable unit have a garage? Wouldn't that make sense? As opposed to making the person.
Well, it's hard because the ones with I'll try my answer and then Craig can give you the real answer, but the ones with the garages don't have first floor bedrooms. Because the garage takes up the space for the first floor bedroom. So in order to be adaptable, we need that first floor bedroom. So townhouse style, it's impractical.
All right. Good answer, right?
Thank you.
Brenda, do you have any questions?
You're muted, Brenda.
I'm muted. Okay. I guess if you watch the evening news, they're anticipating that the tariffs are going to have a significant impact on new construction costs. In any way, with the increase in new construction costs, how would that be reflected in this project? If that does come to fruition.
I don't think the most intelligent economist in the world can answer that question. The owner is here if he cares to take that into consideration, but I think you're building either way, right?
so I'm all around.
Yeah.
There's really not an answer to that question at the
Construction
cost has been
high for 5 years.
Yeah.
It's probably his risk.
All right, since this is a public hearing and we have a number of people both online and in audience, we're gonna open it up to questions. And what I'll do is I'll go back and forth between online and floor, and what we ask is that you identify yourself for the record and pose your question, and we'll move from there. So I'll start first with online. If anybody online has a question, would you please raise your hand? I don't see anybody at the moment, so we'll come back to that. We'll go to the audience. Anybody in the audience have a question either in support of or in opposition to?
Let's get them together. Let it get over here.
Well, it's not really a question, but I'd like to say that I'm not from Tucker, and I own that little parcel of land in the corner there. I've lived there for over 90 years, so it's a little upsetting to be surrounded by this type of thing. I mean, my little affordable home is there. And as you can see, I'm bordered on both sides by this development, which is somewhat upsetting. And I'm gonna let my granddaughter talk after.
If I can finish her statement for her.
Yeah, thank you.
So she's over 90 years, she's been here, she's seen a lot of changes in her time. She's never been more worried about what's happening in their town than what she is tonight. Being the senior citizen and the property borders two sides of her land where the housing development being proposed. She's come here to share her deep concerns and ask you to reconsider this plan. This part of town has no city water or sewer, and it makes her very uneasy. We rely on private wells out here, including her own, which is a very shallow well, like many of the others nearby. These shallow wells are easily affected if too much water is drawn or if a nearby septic system begins to fail. We worry that the new houses with all the water needs and wastewater will put pressure on the groundwater we depend on. If something happens to her well, she doesn't know how she'll manage, and at her age, that kind of disruption could be devastating. She has lost sleepless nights, the stress of all this, the upcoming noise and dust and the construction, it's keeping her up at night. She's lived a quiet, peaceful life here. She's worked hard to maintain her home and her independence. This development would be right on top of her. It's going to change everything, bring down property values, and make it harder for emergency crews to get through and destroy the rural character that's made this place so special for so long. We ask that you look at this not just as a set of building plans, but think about the people who will be affected. Think of the folks like her who've loved and cared for this land for generations. We're not asking for much, just to live out our days in peace and the safety in her home that she's always known.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't see any hands raised online. So I'll go back to the audience here. Anyone wishing to speak? Yes, please.
My name's Dorothy Spada. I live at 816 Middlesex Turnpike, which is the home that is south bordering this property. I just want to start with two human things before I talk about my health and safety concerns. One is, as you can tell, it's brought great anxiety for us. We are the bordering residential neighbors. And we were not, I realize the town did not have to tell us, but we found out by accident about all of this. And so that was really overwhelming to see that this mini city is going to be put next to us and really encompass Madeline's home, not so much ours, but it was just on a human level. That was really, it's been very upsetting. You know, we are longtime residents, not as long as Madeline, but you know, our feelings should be taken a little bit in consideration about this. And I just want to take a roll call here. How many of you actually walk through this property to see how tight this is in a residential? Nobody. I really encourage all of you to take a walk through and see how tight it is. And my home has been there since 1830, and think about the changes that has had. Little, the hundreds of years, the other homes across the street have been there. Just please walk by it. My concerns are what other people have brought up is septic. There's been septic concerns in that home before the applicant was there. And then you're going to be adding 30+ people. That's a lot. I realize you're putting in the septics, but that's a lot of people. It's a lot of waste. And what if that fails? What happens to all of that? And how is that going to affect us? The well water is the biggest concern. We lost a well in our property prior to us owning it. The property, the establishment to the north of us.
Or south.
South, I'm sorry, I'm nervous. Contaminated our well. And so we had to, the property owners at the time had to move the well to the other side, which is the driveway side almost at the beaches. We're on that side. So if that is contaminated or somehow flawed, where are we going to put it? We don't have any more room. That's very concerning. You know, I think about that big fire that happened. The big fire that happened in Otter Cove. I know we're not Otter Cove. I'm on the Nipple side, but they had trouble getting water. Where's all this water going to come? I realize that there's the 2-hour window thingy there. I get all that. Now, the establishment on one side of us has 40+ cars on a given day, just sitting there. and whatever level of repair. Now you're gonna add 30+ cars on the other side of my property. Where's all that extra, like the stuff that comes out of cars, where does that all go? Is that gonna affect the soil into the land, into the well? You all may think I'm overreacting, but that's a big concern, as well as a big fire concern. So now I'm gonna be surrounded by about 80 cars in my home. That's a lot, that's scary. So what happens if the overflow from their septic comes over to us? What happens? Where's that go? The runoff, where's that gonna go? On a bad stormy day, it already overflows, not the septic, but the water, you know, it has to go somewhere. It seeps in there, it slows down everything. The wells, the people, the other establishment on the other side, they just had to dig 500 feet to get water. So again, how is this all gonna affect our well water? And, you know, I'm not an architect, I'm not an engineer, but those are real concerns. And we'd like some reinsurance from the town, not just the property people. We'd like some reassurance. What is gonna happen? How is that gonna be monitored? These are real life concerns in our home. The light pollution. There's already a light on the applicant's home that shines into my bedroom every night. I have darkening curtains, we've moved our bed, it still shines into my room every night. So we're gonna add 25, 40 more lights. You say that it's gonna be night sky, but where's the reassurance that we're not gonna be living in the city? I moved from the city, I don't wanna be back in one. The noise. We do live in a dual zone. The only time we get any quiet is nights and weekends. And is that gonna disappear? There's gonna be more car traffic. It's already like living on 95. And we're gonna have to hear cars coming in and coming out and see those lights into our bedrooms or our houses. There's only the one waste receptacle we saw was gonna border my neighbor's property, and that's like only one waste place. Where's all, you know, is that enough? You know, we're worried about vermin coming and the smell.
You too. Thank you. Anybody else?
Nobody's online, so you're next, sir.
My name's Lou Spada. I live at 816 Middlesex Turnpike. I've been in construction back and forth with everything. The quarry or the gravel pit behind us is probably 6 feet below the level of this. Now, on the north side, it's only 3 feet. But where the ponds are, it's 6 feet. Now, when you get the 100-year rain, plus the 2,800 times more septic, 2,800 times more septic, gray water, mixed with the rainwater, where's that gonna go down into? The gentleman over there mentioned that earlier. That's for the Connecticut River, that runs down in there. It's almost like putting the sewer line from there right into the ponds and from the ponds down. Now you're dumping gray water. I'm also a commercial fisherman. I'm a shellfisher. We're having problems all over the coast because of bacteria. All right? Septic isn't the way to go with bacteria. That's the problem a lot of these towns around the coast are having issues. My problem is that they wanted to subdivide that property. I know it's nothing to do with you guys, you got nothing to do with it. They wanted to put one home in, and they wouldn't let it. Now you're gonna there's gonna be 14 there. All of them are gonna have people living in it, or just the only one will be the repair shop. But now you got all that septic. Okay, it's constantly in the soil. Now you get that rain, it's gonna merge with that. Now, I know these guys, they got it all figured out. All the sand and the gravel and all this, but what about the ledge in the back? That's why he didn't go any further with the gravel. That's ledge on the top down here.
So where does the water go with the rock? It's gonna travel down. Where's the down? The ponds. So now you've got all that water. Who's gonna, and the biggest thing for me is who's gonna hold the responsibility for the surface water, the groundwater? I already have that problem in my property. That water's no good. It's a 40-foot hand-dug well. And the water's no good. We already have an existing problem there. Okay? And now we're adding to it. Now, if they put a single house there, there's nothing we could say. Because you're putting a septic system in and everything else that would be dealing with that. But you're putting in 14 more, you put in 14 houses there. You have an existing house that I know for a fact, this lady here lived there since she was a baby. They have problems with their septic system. Yeah, it's sand and gravel and all this. We can talk about it all we want, but it all comes down to the end. Who's liable for when it goes to shit? Sorry, excuse me, but when it goes, who's liable for that? Now, the government says they can put them in because they don't give a care. I do. I live there. This poor woman lives there. You put up that apartment complex, it's gonna knock her property values down to nothing. And in mine too. And now right on the other side of that, what do you think he's got? That's Bud Hull or Hill over there. Or Alan, not Alan, yeah, Bud. The son, right behind him is the other house. I mean, you can't just go into an area with no sewer, no water, put all these buildings in. You're gonna have to drill another well just for fire. Because you're not putting in a single home. Now you're putting in 12. Like they said, there's single dwellings. So there's 12 homes there. What's gonna happen if they have a fire? What are you gonna have, 17 tanker trucks there? Or run 8 miles of hose down to the pond? I mean, we gotta think a little bit about all of it. Why didn't he just get the property down further, the other side of Route 9? There's sewer and water. There wouldn't be any of this problem. And there's plenty of property down there for sale. Why? Well, I don't get it. How we can let this go. They wanted to put a single dwelling in, fine, but not, what is it, 12 more homes on top of it. It doesn't make sense.
On an acre and a quarter.
On an acre and a quarter. Christine, what's the minimum acreage you can build on here in Saybrook?
This is a different
Come on,
situation.
I'm just asking the zoning board, I'm not asking, the government's gonna do what they want. I mean, if they want it bad enough, they're just gonna step in and say, "Brilliant. Don't worry about the environment or anything else."
Well, no, as it was said in the very beginning, I think Mr. Casella told us all it was in 8-30G. So it doesn't matter what our regulations are.
Oh, no, I understand that. I understand all that.
Okay.
But what I'm saying is though, there's so many other things involved just in the environment. I mean, the septic, the gray water, the runoff water. Okay, I live there. I'm not reading it on a book. Nobody come in and told me. I live there. I deal with the groundwater that's contaminated. All right, from next door.
So the issue with, as you brought up with the groundwater and the 100-year storm, the capacity for absorption and where it goes, that's been referred to our consulting engineer, and the Connecticut River Area Health District gets to look at that. And what's the capacity of the septic system designed for these units? Does it exceed, what's the max? Does it exceed 5,000 gallons per day?
No,
No,
the max is 7,500 gallons per day per property now,
right.
going up to 10,000 gallons per day, but it's.
At 7,500 gallons per day, the DEEP gets involved. That's not gonna happen.
I understand what you're saying, but you gotta add the gray water and that water together. Now, yeah, one's on one side of the yard, the other's on the other side of the yard. I understand that. But funny thing, there's no wall under the ground. My groundwater is contaminated. All right, so now you're gonna add more to that. I just think it needs to be taken and really seriously looked at.
Right, and that's, we're just lay people.
No, I understand, I'm just,
We've referred it to I think we've referred it to the proper authorities and the expertise that will give us an answer that you might not like, but an answer that will do the best engineering, not regulation,
No.
not political, but the engineering.
but just at the point when it all goes to hell, who's liable? That's the problem, because nobody ever seems to be liable when it goes away. You know what I mean? It's, oh, I'm sorry. Oh, they should have done better. But somebody has to be held liable. My point is, I know nobody here can do anything. My serious point is, if you were gonna do something like this, wouldn't you have bought a piece of property where there's septic or where there's sewer and water? Right? I mean, I'm using the C word, common sense. I'm sorry. Okay, I'm done.
Thank you, and the reason that we have these public hearings is to hear from you and get assessment from the property owners that surrounded the potential development to understand the picture. Our hands sometimes are somewhat tied, okay? But we try to do the most efficient and proper proceedings to look through all of the requirements. When it goes into an 830G application, our hands are tied as a statutory organization. But we hear you, and when those questions will be.
Well, that's all I was told, don't even bother coming. Because the state had stepped in and said the house is going in.
CRAD has not issued, as far as I'm aware, CRAD has not issued an approval yet for a system.
Okay.
Okay, and as part of an application to this commission, there has to be an approval.
Okay.
Before we can hear it completely, okay?
Yep.
So we have to wait for that to take place,
Okay.
all right?
Yep. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Now, the May 5th thing, is that
That's the
public?
next, that's a public hearing, you're welcome to come back.
Okay.
It will be advertised.
Very good.
No hands online, anybody else in the audience? Yes.
So I'm Meredith Devani, I'm speaking on behalf, again, I prepared a statement on behalf of my grandmother. Couple things at the affordability review meeting that they attended, the Affordability Commission did ask that of the 6 units that were being sold as condos, that one of those be considered to be sold at the affordability rate. That was something that was brought up that was not mentioned tonight, it didn't seem to pass anyone's attention. So that being said, while I understand that this project may proceed unless there are clear health and safety concerns, I believe there's several serious issues that warrant careful attention and mitigation before any approval is granted. One of my major concerns is the placement of the commercial dumpster, which is less than 40 feet from my grandmother's back deck. While there's other nearby residential properties, hers is the most directly affected, as the dumpster would sit extremely close to her house and her outdoor living area. Dumpsters emit strong odors, attract rodents, and pose sanitation risks, especially during the warmer months. It's wholly inappropriate to locate one so close to a senior citizen, and it presents a real threat to her health and well-being. In addition, the vehicle headlights of cars entering and exit the development, they'll shine directly onto her property, creating an ongoing disruption to her daily life. The other thing I found out tonight, the lights, they're 14 feet from the ground at the light post. I feel like that's an absurd height for lights. But to help mitigate this impact, I respectfully request that a solid 7-foot privacy fence be required along all shared property lines. It serves to reduce noise, block intrusive lighting, and provide a much needed buffer to protect her quality of life. We're also deeply concerned about the impact of the wells, as it's been mentioned. The addition of new wells could significantly strain the local water table, leading to reduced water quality, which there is already an issue in that area. For these reasons, we respectfully ask the commission to withhold approval of this development unless the following conditions are met. Connection to city water, not at the town's expense. The relocation of the dumpster as far as possible from adjacent residential homes to minimize health risks, odors, and pests, and the installation of a 7-foot privacy fence. These are not unreasonable requests. They're essential protections for the health, safety, and well-being of the residents who already live in this neighborhood.
If this development is to move forward, it must do so with full and fair consideration of those who already live there.
Thank you. Anyone else willing, interested in speaking? No one in the audience, there is no one online. Attorney Casella, would you want to make any, start? Go.
Yeah.
All right. Sewer and water. So again, Joe Wren for the record. Yes, this project cannot be built unless we have health department approval, right?
Excuse me, can I just ask a question? You say health department, do you, like the town health department, the state health department? I'm sorry, just need clear.
Connecticut River Area Health, which is responsible for,
The one by the
septic
train
system.
station?
That's
Okay,
correct.
I'm sorry, excuse me, I'm sorry.
Yes, so without health district approval, project can't proceed, right? So what they're charged with is looking at the wells and the septic systems and making sure that it meets the Connecticut Public Health Code. If they need clarification, they contact people up at DPH, Department of Public Health at the state level, and they'll ask them for some clarifications. But at the end of the day, once we have that approval, it's saying that they reviewed it and everything meets the public health code. So we have septic systems on here. There is no sewer available in town, as we all know. Every property in town of Saybrook is on a septic system. And same goes for town of Westbrook, town of Clinton, town of Madison. Most of our shoreline, most of Old Lyme as well, there's one section of it in Beach Community that goes to the sanitary sewer. There is no sanitary sewer available. And as you know, the state mandate is that each community provide at least 10% affordable housing. And in order to get that, you have to build new units. And to build new units, they have to be on septic systems. So there's no way around it. Public water from here, I believe, is at least a half mile in one direction and would make this project not possible and fail. It's just not financially viable. And if we want to add affordable units in this town, we have to consider projects like this. As far as the stormwater, stormwater, as I mentioned earlier, is all contained on the site. All the water that drains to this site is self-contained and infiltrated into the groundwater. That's a known best management practice, and it's in all the current Connecticut stormwater manuals and water quality manuals and so forth. In the catch basins themselves, we have sumps that collect sediments and so forth that have to be maintained. Of course, just like anything, whether it's your car, your home, whatever, everything has to be maintained. We have maintenance programs for the stormwater systems on the plans themselves. And the last outlet before it gets into the infiltration has an outlet hood on it, which we're all used to those terms now. The outlet hood traps floatables and including things that float on water like oils and greases, all that floats on the water, so that can be cleaned separately and maintained. That way, the hood basically covers the pipe outlet. So anything, once there's a water level in the basin, nothing can get up under into the pipe. Everything floats on the outside and it could be collected and treated separately as part of the maintenance program. So that is very limited of any that gets into the groundwater. No one would want to directly put that into the groundwater. So that's why these measures are in place. We have some curb limitations. We're promoting overland flow. There's nowhere, if you had a big detention basin on the site, there's nowhere to discharge it to if you're not going directly to private property. So fortunate for this site, we've dug several test holes out here. It's very well draining sands and gravels. The back portion of the property where the stormwater infiltration system is we went down 8 or 9 feet as far as we could reach with the backhoe that we dug that day, and it's all beautiful sand, pure sand all the way down, which is excellent for septic systems and stormwater infiltration systems. There is a separation distance from the well to the stormwater infiltration system, which is 100 feet or like 150 feet. So we see that distance. That was one of Jeff Jacobson's comments. The shallow well gets its water source from a different level in the ground than the drilled wells. Currently there's a drilled well on the site that produces really good water quality, right? And really good yield. You know the depth of it?
I don't know, that 10 gallons. But it's probably 300-400 feet, right? I think it's probably 350. So approximately 350 feet deep. The shallow well we're talking about is 40 feet deep. It gets, the shallow dug wells are gravel packed wells, and it gets the water more from the local surface area. And that gets into the local water table. These wells are drilled wells. They're several hundred feet into the ground, and they go between layers of bedrock and grab an aquifer of sand and gravel between the bedrock. So it's vertically kind of protected, and it runs from a separate source than the shallow wells do. The well that's there now, not too far, it's right just to the south of the house. So these are just a little 20-30 feet to the west of that well, and it gets excellent water quality that's not treated, and it has a great yield. That well itself could provide water for this entire community. We're just required to have two wells for this particular well, but one, and if it gets the same yield as the existing one, could provide for the whole community. As far as the lights, all the lights, we provided photometrics plans, architectural review board already looked at it. There's no light trespass, everything's dark sky compliant, shining downward. The 14-foot is the maximum in your zoning regulation, so we stuck with that. We do have Thuja green arborvitaes all around that whole entire south property line, which could be replaced with a fence, but arguably, if you all know the Thuja green arborvitaes, they're just a really nice green screen and they grow really quick. The planted height is probably 6 feet minimum. I think that we have on there, and they're big bushy evergreens. The deer do not eat the thujas because they have a cedar species element cross, and the deer do not eat them. So you don't get the lollipop style as you do with the regular arborvitaes that you would buy at your local landscape shop. The deer like to eat those. These the deer don't like to eat, so they stay big and full and they're evergreen. So that's what we have on here now. I'm sure the owner would consider a fence, but I think the green wall, the evergreen wall is a better separation to that. The dumpster, we will look at other potential locations. We just need an SU-30, a 30-foot long vehicle. We need to be able to access that dumpster so it can empty and maintain the dumpster. So we'll consider other locations for that. Right now, it kind of meets anything, any code requirement that we know of. It has a full, did we put a masonry wall around it or just?
No, it's just over.
So right now we have a fenced enclosure on 3 sides, solid fenced enclosure, and a gate on the front side of it. But willing to, hear the commission if there's any suggestions on that. We're required to have one. We're required to have the enclosure. But if there are any recommendations on that, we can look into that. Was that really similar? Septic wells? I think that covers most of the items. If there's something I left off, that's.
A no-brainer would be to put it up where the truck turns around on the north side of the property.
Yeah, we looked at that. We actually just talked about that again today, and over there, right now, we just have a 5-foot tab for those end parking spots to be able to back into and pull out forward. And if we had the dumpster there, we would have no turning area, backing area for those vehicles. They would have to back straight up. And that is one of the areas that we're gonna look at and consider.
Chris, you had some questions?
So one of the issues obviously is water. And I know you're in front of the health district, and I think the commission understands 830G, affordable housing. We typically have applications with public water. We understand that, it's too much to get the public water down the road, but to address the concerns not only of the neighbors, but also the success of the development. Have you thought about doing any drilling or any other testing other than what's there before to show that the development is going to have enough water, just enough water, as well as the fire concerns? So was from the fire department. I'm just trying to think of a way. You have a lot of people here. They have comments about water and wells. Is there anything you can provide for the next meeting, or any drilling or any other than what's out there now to try to alleviate the concerns that there's not gonna be enough water.
So, two things. One, any well is not gonna keep up with the needs of fire. You would need huge storage that you have suction from. There are two on your GIS, Tom GIS, there are two draft locations. There's one in the quarry pond, in the gravel pit, 200 feet behind the site. That's a legitimate, it's on the town GIS system as a fire draft location. And then across the street off of Monk Road where the dam is, that's another draft location.
But
That's on-
I believe the draft locations or potential water sources, you'd have to have some kind of a dry hydrant there and permission from the property owner to do it.
Oh,
So that's the issue right now in Otter Cove where the house is burned there. The fire department is working and I can ask the fire department with a private property owner to see if they can put a dry hydrant at that well. So I think I don't think they can just go onto someone's property and drain their pond. And I don't think they have
Somehow
that.
someone put a draft location on the GIS, so there's gotta be some permission to do it.
I don't think it's permission, I think it's feasibility.
Okay,
So.
it doesn't say that on GIS, but anyway.
I will get checked with the
That's
fire
one thing that
department.
we noticed, because just to the east, there's a draft location, just to the west, there's draft location, this property is right in the center.
So right now, we're discussing with the fire department, a private property owner, permission to go on a property that pond actually also has an inland wetlands and water course to go through and get permits to do that.
Mhm.
So I don't know of any permits that the fire department has. I can check on that.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, somehow there was information that.
I think it's feasibility,
Made it
whoever made the
way
map.
to that. Anyways, that's what we noticed. That there is a layer on GIS and it shows the two draft locations. The other things, once we got fire chief's comments like last Thursday before the day off on Friday. And we had some time to digest those comments. Just today, we had a meeting with that code consultant to see how it applies, since these are treated as single family attached townhomes with a 2-hour firewall. So we're trying to determine what the water requirement is in that particular case. And go from there. There are options, there are some self-contained options, and we're evaluating all that.
But so you explain that, but I guess the question is, don't we need to evaluate how much water is there and say that it's gonna work? How do you address the concerns of the neighbors as
So-
well as you're gonna build a housing development with an affordable component, which is great. But when do you know for sure that you're gonna have enough water to service all of these units?
So right now, the existing well that's 20 or 30 feet away from these two proposed wells provides 10 gallons per minute, which is 14,400 gallons per day, which is multiples of this development. Each unit is about 300 gallons a day each. That's 3,600 gallons plus the single family house. Say it's 5,000, say it's 7,000 gallons a day. The existing well provides 14,000. We're gonna have two wells. So even if the two wells still provide 14,000, we're still double of what's required.
So I guess what I'm
Remember, it's
trying to say,
different.
is there a way with this second well to get some information before to assure that that water's there versus relying on another well?
But we have, what you would do is.
Have you drilled?
They just drilled it. This well is only.
So you have, if it's just been drilled, you have that from the.
That's what I mean.
From the
You
water.
only
place.
So that's, I think, what we're asking,
That's
because
what
we're
we're
not aware of where you are with the full water thing. So you
Yeah.
recently drilled for the second well to test.
Correct. No.
No, you drilled the second
There's a
well.
new well for
Period.
the house
Right.
next to where we're drilling these, so it's the same thing as drilling now, you're gonna
There's
get.
the,
to the same body of water aquifer that's underground.
there's water use for the 12 units or 13 units, okay, which is one thing.
Okay.
The other, which I feel is more important, is what if the event there was, a fire in the area, what's the water supply that could adequately manage that? We've already seen from recent history that it's a challenge.
Right.
What we're looking for is for you to supply some kind of documentation or some type of information that says that you have that under consideration and you have options. So that we can adequately review this, because as you know, on an 830G, it comes down to public health and safety that this commission can do anything about.
And that's why we brought the co-consultant on board to
Right,
review
right.
all that.
That's right, and that's for that aspect of it.
There are.
But we're the cart's in front of the horse. We don't have that information. We need that in order to
Yeah.
assess this. And that's why you've already asked for a continuation to the 5th, but people in the audience have concern, as others do in that part of town. And we're just looking to have some type of support that says this is what's gonna.
Yeah, as a response to the fire chief's comments from like last Thursday, we immediately got on the
No, I
phone, I think
understand. We had the
Friday,
Easter holiday.
with the co-consultant, and we had a meeting with him today,
I know.
so we're right on
Right.
that once we got it.
Okay.
I think we're just making
That's just
suggestions.
making
so
sure
we
that-
could
Yeah.
Yeah.
take care of this at the next
Right.
meeting and address everybody's concerns.
Well, and we want to know certainly that the fire chief feels his concerns have been addressed, right? And
We're
then
gonna
the
start
fire-
meeting with them.
We need to get the fire marshal
Yeah.
also to chime in. We need to have the fire marshal
Okay.
opinion on this, which we don't have at this point. So we're just making sure that we're all clear, because the purpose of the discussion this evening is they're looking for what do they need in order to come back and get an approval. And we're telling them, we need more information along these lines in order to make an educated decision.
During the design process, we reached out to the fire marshal a couple of times, but very difficult to get a meeting with. him.
I'm sure you will get in contact with them.
So if you can help us along with that, I really appreciate it.
Just one other question. There's one section that you have fencing on the property, and I know some of the other neighbors were asking about fencing. And then we all know that there's an active construction operation. But the area that you're gonna have a recreation area, I'm assuming where kids and people are gonna play, you're gonna make it into a scenic overlook of this pond. So there's no thought of kind of blocking off to keep children from running into the construction site?
We'll put up some no trespassing signs.
I'm just, I don't know, I was looking at it, just didn't make sense to me, but.
You can't see the pond.
Toddlers don't.
Yeah, you can't see the pond anyway, there's a giant berm in the way.
Yeah, you can't see the pond coming in.
I don't, that's kind of why I was asking the question, if they're gonna have some view from here with Benjamin's.
We'll take advantage of
No, I'm just saying it's a recreation area, just,
We were trying to provide a nice amenity.
no, I'm not disagreeing, I'm just,
that. We could take them out and see now.
Yeah, yeah.
About like a spit rail.
Yeah.
I'm just,
Consideration
Yeah,
of
something
the
like a split rail.
fence.
I guess I never really kind of thought of it as a scenic overlook, which is nice if that can be done, just.
If there's no other questions or presentations or comments from the field at this point, we'll continue this to our next regularly scheduled. Oh, I'm sorry.
One comment.
Sure.
I wouldn't go to speak, but I think, still like I need to.
Sure.
My name is Heidi Endrich Bone. I live up the street.
Can you spell
this-
your last name?
It's Endrich, ENDRICH hyphen Bone, BONE.
Thank you.
I live up the street. Madeline is my aunt, and this location where this construction is gonna happen used to be my grandmother's house. I do encourage all of you to go and take a look at this location. It is almost unfathomable to me that there's gonna be 12 single-family homes, basically, on this 1.25 acre lot. I can't even, it's small. And already there's, where you're talking about problems getting in fire trucks and garbage trucks, and there's no room to do this, and there's no room to do that. That is a lot on that location. A lot, and I understand affordable housing, we need affordable housing. But there's gotta be other options. And I agree with everything that everybody said about the water. The water could potentially affect me as well. I have a shallow well, my home is 100 years old, I have a shallow well. So you're taking water from down below, but is that water gonna be draining down from the surface? Of course it is. So everything that these folks said, I agree with 100%. I just wanted to share that. I do encourage everybody to go and look at the site. It's very tight.
Thank you. Anybody online have a question? Not seeing any hand raised, we'll continue, the application. Continue the Whispering Winds application for site plan approval for affordable housing development on an 8:30 G to our next regularly scheduled meeting on Monday, May 5th at 7 PM, Town Hall first floor conference room. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Who's the second? Second by Laura.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Yeah.
Nice.
The last one.
Oh, the vein.
The vein.
The vein.
The vein.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, I'm that.
Okay, continuing, we have our 2024 outdoor seating renewal. Chris?
Okay, I have a list, same list as last year. We.
Statute one. With you. Yeah, I know. All right, sorry.
So it's the same list as last year. We sent out a letter. Remember, we stopped
Yep.
asking if they wanted to renew it, just said were there any changes or discontinued. We haven't heard anything back. I'm happy to distribute the list if you want to hear me go through all of them and then tire you out. So we need a motion through the outdoor seating.
I have a question, any complaints from any of those locations about? I haven't heard anything either.
So moved. Second by Casey Mann. Any discussion? Not hearing any, all those in favor, signal by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, abstains, passes 5-0-0. All right, next is discussion and possible regulation amendments.
Second here. All right, so we talked about, here and there we do our annual housekeeping for regulation changes. A few things that came up, and I know here and there, the board comes up with ideas or finds something that just a problematic regulation, so we do our annual, we call them the housekeeping fixes. So just a few things, if you would be interested in making some amendments. One of the things that is kind of interesting is that I was approached by the high school to put a sign on the high school, and we don't have any wall sign regulations for high schools. They want to put footprints. So we don't allow wall signs in the Residence A district, but that's why it says Town Hall, the Cape, and so forth. So would this be something you'd be interested in a regulation?
But they want to put just the name?
So right now, I mean, there's no sign regulation for the Residence A district. It's only a freestanding sign. So they're looking to put a logo over where it says Old Saybrook High School. If you look at all of our buildings in Residence A, town buildings, it says Town Hall. There's no. So I looked it up. I said, wait a minute, we don't have a defined sign regulation. So the thought would be if it was a special exception use in the Residence A district, would they be allowed, would you consider having a a sign that's not internally illuminated?
They have a sign now that says Old Saybrook High School.
Okay.
Now they're looking to put the
Right.
logo for the high school above it on the building.
Mhm.
We don't have it.
Well, it's kind of interesting because now I look at it, it says town hall in the front and the crest is on the side of the building. So I don't know if somehow it dropped out of the regulations, some type of a wall sign in the Residence A district or what happened. I didn't make it into a research project, but I just said, well, maybe we should take a look at it.
Just in Residence A,
Yeah.
it's more than just a high school.
It's the town hall, it's the K, it's, I mean, any special exception use. So it's only the freestanding sign. So I don't know if somewhere it got omitted. And that also encompasses the SP Saybrook Point district. So the thought would be to allow potentially a wall sign externally illuminated as a special exception. Because most of these uses for special exception uses.
Could it be restricted to municipal buildings?
We typically try not to,
Okay.
and we could, but
Can't discriminate that way.
It may not be held.
so for example, the fire department, you know, what I mean, is that, that's the,
Gray.
you get into these gray areas
Yeah.
with that.
So this would go in the sign section?
Under Residence A, so yes,
Right.
and we allow for a wall sign for special exception uses only, externally illuminated. And then I kind of went through the numbers, I mean, 40 or 50 square feet?
Well, the starting point, would not the starting point be to have the same max, A or B set max 75?
But we're in a residence zone, that's, I guess,
In resident zone, should it have lower square footage?
Should have lower square footage.
20% and 5%?
I'm just saying, maybe we just make a, what would the cap be?
I would.
I'm thinking, I'm not
40.
even looking at the percentage, what would the cap be?
40 square feet, I think, should be considered.
I guess we're in
I don't-
favor of, I guess we're in favor of some sort of rule regulation, you know.
Yeah, I
40
don't-
square feet sounds
In
huge.
theory, I don't have a problem with it, but can we differentiate in that way in one zone?
We're not differentiating. we're
Like,
calling-
can we say, these uses are allowed to have this size sign, but other uses aren't allowed to have this size sign in the same zone?
So there would be special exception uses, so you couldn't put a 40 square foot welcome sign on your house.
Right, but can we actually do that
We have
based
that.
on?
And we can even do it to the municipal uses, but we typically don't do that.
Any idea what the cost is on this thing?
I don't know, I'm just kind of I'm
Yeah.
throwing out the idea, was it something you would entertain for a fix? So I'd rather not
If-
write or fix
Right.
anything if you don't wanna fix it.
If we didn't do a fix, and the high school wants the sign, what is their option?
They would go for a variance with no hardship.
We need a fix.
I don't know. Problem with it.
What, for a fix?
Yeah.
What do you mean by fix?
Well, did we write?
These are things we hear in
Rewriting it.
there, this thing
Oh, I
come
see.
up and I'm like,
Yeah,
wait a
yeah.
minute, this doesn't really
An
make.
amendment or a fix?
Yeah, we call them our
Okay.
housekeeping fixes,
Yeah.
so, all right, so that one. The other one I brought up at some point, it,
Just, if you put in different standards for residence A, then they have to change 64.3 standards all districts.
that's what I mean, I'd have to go through and look at,
Oh, okay.
Would there be a maximum height? Too?
it would be on the wall, so we allow for freestanding, we don't allow for wall sign.
But this would be on.
Right.
So but I mean, it could go to the top of the building?
It can go anywhere on the wall, as long as it's on the wall, measured to a maximum height of 12 feet by the width of
But
the.
would
So it's gotta
10
stay,
feet,
10, it's gotta stay 10 feet below the
The
roof line,
roof line.
the height of it,
No.
right? No?
It's measured 10 feet. So you measure your calculation, the maximum of 10 feet in height, even if the wall is 40 feet high, by the width of the actual wall, not the width of the facade. So when we have our jogs in the new building,
I was thinking placement.
so we don't regulate that.
Well, what do we just do with the auto mall?
Well, the sign had to be at the.
Had to be,
The roof level.
at the roof line.
So it can't
not
be above the roof
that's-
line,
that's
it
what
has
was,
to be
yeah.
on a wall, not on a,
They have.
Sorry.
alright.
Next.
Next. All right, so the other thing, and I think we need to do it anyway, is just to go through our regulations again for convalescent, group home and other acts, just to make sure the statute change here and there, just to make sure that everything is
Yeah.
on the up and up. The other one is the pedestrian node. We still have some text on sidewalk design, but that's changed over the years. So when it was created, it would say, okay, you're gonna have a room finish sidewalk in this area is gonna have soldier course. But what's physically happened through grants is that there were certain areas of town that didn't follow the patterns, and then it became so complicated, the town simplified it a little. So it would be just to kind of remove that text, and then we could just go through with the area and match what's there.
Mhm.
The next one here. Accessory dwelling unit. Text. So we've had a few situations where people have been this close to being able to put an accessory apartment. But they have, instead of the 12,500, they have like 12,450, but we prohibited the size variance. So you have someone who has a lot, it's just a little bit short. We prohibited them from going for a variance. They can meet all the side setbacks and everything else. Would there be any thought about lifting that 12.5? And or the variance prohibition?
Lifting a 12.5 to 0? Or
Well,
reducing it?
reducing it. So it's kind of tricky. So the way we did this initially was the regulation had a prohibition to avoid ZBA granting variance, so we had ADUs on 5,000 square foot lots. The reality is, we're not gonna get ADUs on these teeny lots. So the question is, and I actually made a mistake and I told someone they should probably just apply for the variance because they had this little 50 square feet or whatever it was, 100 square feet. Then I looked at the prohibitions and we expressly prohibited it to stop the ZBA from approving these variances. So if we lift the prohibition, then people will go to ZBA and it's probably likely that they'll get them. But the question is, do we want to consider some flexibility from that 12.5 number?
They comply with the setbacks.
So I mean, we could say
Coverage.
if we remove the 12.5 and they applied for no other variances, we can make a prohibition that they have to meet everything else, including the health code. We can keep it the same.
How many lots are eligible?
It's gonna depend on the soils and the location, and if they can meet all the setbacks and coverage. So if they can meet, I mean, you could go through and eliminate the 12.5 and just do it hypothetical. But then put the prohibition on variances or setbacks or the bulk regulations or the coverage, and they have to meet the health code.
Yeah, because otherwise.
Yeah,
So we've actually had 3 of them. And I mean, they're like that close or in 200 square feet off, so they have everything designed, can meet all the regs, can meet the coverage. I'm looking at Bob, I know he's gonna say something clever.
probably more of these situations around than you realize.
So the complaint stems from there's just one thing that's keeping me from doing what I want. But in reality, there's multiple things in play. There's setbacks and soils and other stuff. Is there a way to write a regulation that combines a combination of A and B and C? so that if you have only one of these three conditions, you could proceed. But if you have two of these conditions, you're dead in the water. And then we go to the next level where, oh, I have two of these things, but I'm prohibited and.
Well, I mean, I think you look at it this way, if you can meet all the setbacks, you're not further infringing on your neighbors. You can meet the coverage in the gross floor area. Instead of having the prohibition on the 12.5, have the prohibition on variances of the bulk standards, setbacks and coverage. People are not going to be able to put an accessory dwelling unit on a 3,000 square foot lot with 15-foot sideline setbacks and all of the other stuff. So it's really going to be the health code that's going to dictate.
But they would have to meet all the other regulations.
Right.
That's the one that would really control that, also by health district on the soils. And if you got somebody that has a 12,400 square foot lot, meets everything else except for the 12.4,
Right.
why not? Why
I get where you're
penalize
going, Bob.
them?
Where do you kind of draw
We could
that
do on the
line?
neighbor, re-subdivide, make them both conforming.
Well, I mean, we have the regulation that you can't split off a lot and make an ADU a separate lot. So that's one of the prohibitions for the variance. But some of these, I mean, people come in with the design and it all makes sense and they just can't do it.
And you've had 3 in the past year.
Probably in the past 6 months, yeah.
Well, even if it's recording, I'll say that if they were eligible for a variance, the odds are that they would probably get the variance. And so with that in mind, is it good zoning to allow for it to happen? And if so, then change the zoning regs. And if it's not good zoning, then prohibit it so that it's not allowed or permitted by a different panel. That's what it boils down to.
Well, I think that's, if we lift the prohibition, then an applicant can go to ZBA really with no hardship to create this accessory dwelling unit. So why do you want to put an applicant in that position anyway, whether the ZBA is going to approve it or deny it? So the thought is remove the lot size, keep the setbacks, keep the gross floor, keep everything bulk related, as long as it's on a building lot with a house, whether it's non-conforming or not, they can fit it on there and meet the other regulations, just kind of switch the prohibition to the bulk standards.
That would be good zoning.
Prohibit something else
Well, yeah, something else may come
in
up.
order to prohibit it from happening,
Yeah,
because in reality, it probably would.
So essentially, it would be the same as what they could do with an addition to the house or any other construction on the property, but in this case, instead of being a simple addition, they can do it as an accessory dwelling. Or it could be separate, it could be detached, but it's the same as like what they could normally do on the lot, but it adds an extra dwelling unit.
No, so
Right.
we have accessory dwelling unit regulations attached or detached.
Right.
12.5 is this magic number.
Right.
But the problem is people can meet, the health code put 1 or 2 systems on the lot.
Well, that's what
They don't have the 12.5, so it's not the same as an addition, it would just, rather than have the 12.5 be that gatekeeper, it would be meeting all the setbacks. Okay.
Right, so like what you could, if you were looking to do something else on your lot that wasn't an accessory dwelling unit, like if I wanna add on to my house with bedrooms or what have you, and
I see what you're saying, so you
then
could,
I
as
would
long as it
comply
had
with
all
the
the setbacks,
but it
be
doesn't
able
have
to
a
do it.
kitchen, but in this case, I could now have
Yes.
a kitchen.
Yes, right.
I think it makes the ZBA decisions clearer.
well, wouldn't go to ZBA.
Well,
Well, I mean,
I guess,
we've gone through and we've learned with accessory dwelling units, it's kind of been a work in progress. You know, we've made a few changes here and there as we've stumbled on them. We've had them in place since the 70s, the detached. The detached ones are
There
kind
it
of the newer ones. So here and there, we're learning a little bit about it now that we opened it out and did up. So, I mean, I could take a stab at it, I just don't wanna,
So by what we have today, in the last 6 months, you probably had 3 of them. So we've lost the opportunity to provide some type of affordable living as an accessory dwelling unit.
Right.
And by taking the 12.5, eliminating the 12.5, but maintaining all the other standards, there's an opportunity to have that. I would think that would be a wise move on the zoning commission to be able to do that. So I think we should explore it as an option.
all right. Okay, that's what I was looking for. I think that really was it for the regulation changes, unless you had something else.
How many affordable units do we have, detached housing units are there in town?
I sent the numbers, I don't know it all from my top of my head. We permitted in the past few years about 20 of them since the regulation went in place, and we have about 70. I can send you those numbers again. I sent it out, I don't know, maybe 6 months ago, the breakdown, because it was kind of interesting.
I'll look.
It was kind of interesting to see how
The impact.
people are using it.
So 20 detached, and how many are attached? Cause that was the first.
I'll get you, then we got, so,
approval, right?
so that was like in the 70s.
Okay.
Attachment through, so we've got
Okay.
about 60
Okay.
or 70, 20 new detached.
Okay.
But what people are doing too, I'm finding, is that they come in, they're gonna add a garage. They know about the regulation and they say, you know, maybe I'm just gonna go and build this apartment because someday,
Family member.
my mother's gonna need to move in,
Yeah.
and then by the time my mother's moving out, my kids are gonna need somewhere to live. So it's an interesting cycle on what people are thinking. And I think I mentioned this, I had a person on the larger lot who actually said, can I have 2 of them? And it was one for my mother and one for my aunt or mother-in-law. He said, then I can put everybody in the yard. We're all far enough away. We can see that everybody's, but you know, when you look at assisted living and people on fixed incomes living, you know, you can keep an eye on your family members, whether they're teenagers or college kids or
92.
92, yeah, exactly.
Okay, discussion, oh no, sorry, committee representative and staff report.
Few things quickly. We had an interesting request. Well, actually, I'm sorry, Bob had brought up, he had some concerns on bed and breakfast. I'll add that to the list. He found some text. The first one, sorry, we got a lot there. Is that we have, there it is. Clients looking to lease space that are Marine and Navy special operation veterans that train high-end dogs. So the dogs come from Denmark and are world-renowned third-generation breeders for this purpose. They're very expensive dogs, so the environment is controlled. The dogs are trained to search for drugs, explosives, firearms, and private home security. Their clients are government, police, and very affluent homeowners. Apparently, people fly from Europe to pick up these dogs for surveillance for their homes. It's not technically a kennel, but like a doggy daycare with disciplined training. The growth plan would have up to 25 dogs. The owners would appreciate a facility to conduct training of the dog handlers, hosts, and have amenities to bathe the dogs, and for the police and military officers training the dogs to shower. It's kind of an interesting.
嗯
So I guess, is it a kennel?
Why isn't the goat, why?
No, I know, that's kind of what I'm thinking, and if it's not a kennel, if it's not a kennel, the question is, would we consider a text amendment to allow something like this?
I'll text them for what?
To allow this training
Allow the
ability
training, but, in what, where is it in our regulation for under kettles?
as a new regulation,
As a new regulation?
so like a.
Why is it not a kennel?
Well, I think it's a kennel. The question is, would we entertain a regulation change to allow someone to train dogs?
Doesn't matter what they do with the dogs, it's a kennel. The dogs are here. The land use is dogs, time, space, land. Doesn't matter what you're doing, let's hope it's legal, but that's as far as zoning goes. It's a kennel.
So would the commission be open to amending the regulations so that it's not a kennel to allow this dog training type use?
So there could be multiple dogs being trained to find guns or to find drugs. And are there restrictions on the amount of guns and drugs on the premises? I mean, we're looking at the dogs, but shouldn't we be looking at the drugs and the guns?
Wow, that's a good spin, Brenda. I thought it was
I'm
for
just
a
saying,
safety.
keep in mind, I'm diminished, so.
I didn't really ask how many
Go there.
pounds of illegal drugs or guns.
I don't know how to train a dog to find a drug without exposing them to a drug or to expose them to a gun. So, and when you've got multiple dogs,
Well,
Well, presumably if they do that, it's overseen by somebody.
It's
Well, their police are military, so that's the,
it's kind of outside our reach at that point.
it is, so I guess
So we're
if,
back to, is it a kennel?
if we had marine and operations, special operations folks training high-end dogs to find catnip and toy guns. Well, would we allow it? And then they would have kind of an overnight facility, so pretty much they would get a house or a commercial location, have a fenced area, train the dogs to find X, Y, Z. Would we entertain that type of a regulation change to allow for such a use?
Our regs prohibit kennels
Well-
right now.
So if you look, section 9 is the definition of kennel, and then kennel, this would obviously exceed the number, is it 6?
Yeah.
6 is the
If-
number,
If they're dogs,
and if they're overnight.
number of dogs, kennel kicks in.
Mhm.
Setbacks, distance from other stuff kicks in. And is there a maximum number?
The max they would ever have is 25, and that would be their total
Well,
build.
that's what they're saying. We don't have a maximum for a kennel.
Well, I understand what you're saying. The question is, would you entertain a regulation change to allow such a use? Or are they wasting their time to keep it?
I'll stick my neck out and say, no, I, as one member of the commission, will not entertain.
I'm just thinking, why doesn't it fit into what we have?
Because it's the number of dogs on the property becomes a kennel. So if we have that number of dogs and the dogs are staying overnight, which if you're doing that training, you'd have,
So it's like, why would you bend the rules from?
they're asking for,
Can't be more than one text.
they're asking for a text amendment because this really isn't a kennel, this is special ops for dog
No.
training.
It's a kennel.
It's a kennel.
Oh, that's what they're saying, yes, okay.
That's like,
So
that's
kennels
like
are.
an ice cream store can only sell these
We do
flavors. No.
allow, so we have
If
the
they have
class,
6 or more dogs, they're not allowed.
then they become a kennel. So this would, if you have the dogs overnight, right, then that's 25 dogs would be the max. And then they would have the training for the dogs, this military training for these special
there's a lot of questions to go into that. The 25 dogs stay there for how long? How long does it take to train a dog to adequately become sniff out drugs or whatever they're doing? I mean, I think we have a regulation and definition that currently allows for it with a controlled number. I think 25 is.
Well, it would become a kennel, so then you would consider it a kennel, they need a larger property, not a smaller.
Right.
But it says that it's not considered a kennel when located in a business district.
So that was when we had what was that, the doggy day camp, day camp?
Yeah.
So
We had one of those?
there was a regulation change for some pretty large number of dogs in and out, but they wanted to go to a location that was just not a very high traffic congested location, then they got frustrated, they couldn't move where they wanted to, we changed the reg. That's why I brought it up, because we did change the reg for that. Okay.
It sounds like a business that would happen in a more rural area, the training.
What happens, they show up next to somebody's house and then.
The next one is the Oyster River Market. This is 1079 Boston Post Road. They had a request, so they were originally approved. Sorry, this paper is really hard to read. To maintain the Maynard's building by selling prepackaged food, drinks, on-site baked goods, non-perishable decorative pieces and apparel. And have a neighborhood market. That was the original Oyster River Market. The property's on the market. These folks would like to put in a coffee shop. Their idea is to serve coffee, pastry, and sandwiches. This would be for customers to come to the counter and place their order. No waiters or waitresses. Inside there would be 3 to 4 small tables with patrons to sit. The inside of the building is old and tired. The buyer would put in new counters and countertops and replace the old displays with new glass displays. The porch, under the overhang, there would be small tables on either side of the door as you walk out of the building. There would be 2 to 3 Adirondack chairs or 2 to 3 picnic tables. The bathroom is not ADA compliant and would need to get built up. So the question from the real estate agent is this a different use from the retail use that was there? Sounds
similar to me.
Sounds the same, outside seating might be different.
But then there's indoor seating.
We didn't have it before.
So the original proposal was for a small farmer's market, no indoor seating.
Farmer's market was, it originated from selling goods that came from a farm to some extent. Pies came from apples and stuff that was grown on a farm. So a farm stand got to include baked goods made from farm products. When you take away anything to do with the farm, meaning something that's locally grown, coffee and whatever's grown in other parts of the world, but not Connecticut, doesn't make it a farm stand.
I do think it's a complete change.
But that was the market, wasn't it?
So this was the original Oyster River Market. So I know initially they wanted to sell, they had a hard time finding local farm produce to sell because we actually do have other, like the farmer's market, people didn't want to compete when they were bringing in goods to town so they had some difficulty getting, without growing their own, finding someone that would distribute it so that they could have the farm market. And then they had baked goods and some prepackaged goods. I haven't been there in a while. They may have, I don't remember any seating in there.
No.
Well, it's on
I don't think it's open.
it's on them, they had pies.
It's a key lime pie side or something.
Yeah, the key lime pies were great.
So this is really I mean, it sounds like a coffee shop to me.
It does
Food
to
and
me
beverage.
too, and then I'd be worried about parking.
Yeah.
Oh, it's
Because
off the
people would be
corner.
lingering around and sitting on the Adirondack chairs, looking at the Oyster River.
So is this retail to retail or is it more retail to food and beverage, I guess I would
Sounds
call
like
it.
it's retail food to beverage,
I
from what I'm hearing.
And it's an answer there.
Would you want to do?
Oh, yeah, I might as well do this one. So, this one, we're gonna put to the next meeting. I asked them to come in. So 35 Research Parkway, remember we went through all the permitting for Blue Ski,
Blue Sky.
Blue Ski. And that was the whole major carbon race to go through and compress and send fragmites
Back in the
basins back into the ground in the Midwest. So they went through all the permits with us and deep shut them down because they weren't allowed to do what they were doing by the state, so they moved out of state.
Oh.
So, this property, this was one of the Stark properties, there was the pathway lighting. And Mr. Stark passed away. This is, I believe, the daughter Jill and her husband, they came in looking for ideas for, they really are desperate to get this property rented. So they came in and said, well, what we would like to do is store boats, recreational vehicles and cars in the building. So the property is located in the industrial zone. Our other storage areas, which apparently now we have a little bit of an issue because apparently CubeSmart is renting space for boats and recreational vehicles. And remember, we went through and did the regulation change maybe in the past 3 to 5 years. That was about marine vehicles, and those could only be within X amount of feet. They had to be in the marine industrial of the Connecticut River. So it doesn't appear to me that this use is allowed. So there was a little bit of confusion, and the thought was they sent a letter to me to come to this commission to request a variance, but really what they're looking for is they're looking to see if you would entertain the idea of taking the industrial zone for the storage of boats and RVs. But this would be inside the building.
Well, CubeSmart stores them outside.
Right?
That's a zoning violation. I didn't realize that.
And then there were boats and cars stored in the building that was down. I'm looking at the CubeSmart next to the thing, down in the corner on the very far end on the left. They used to store boats and RVs and things in there and advertise it. I also believe in that same building, different section, the Carson Moore store their golf carts that they sell over on.
So the difference becomes,
So what my point
The
is,
marine
there's stuff,
storage.
there's storage going on in that general area.
but I
Believe it or not.
suspect the storage, the permits for the storage, like CubeSmart, Bob.
Yeah, what?
CubeSmart,
Yeah,
remember we did the permits for the CubeSmart and those storage areas? Those storage areas did not allow for vehicles, RVs, or boats, correct?
they didn't allow,
You just store boats,
the only
RVs,
ones that could store boats were those that had extra open air property outside their building space. So the ones you can see from 95, that's like at the end of Mill Rock Road.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
That cul-de-sac, there's storage areas on that industrial road, Research Parkway, Mill Rock Road to the end where Appleby, where the ping pong place wanted to go. No, there's some storage spaces, CubeSmart, that had buildings and boats. But not the one on Schoolhouse, not the one at 166, and not, what was the other one?
So the question goes back to, remember you, the Blue Sky property,
Yeah,
Is it the pasta Vita originally?
they moved out. And this is to move, these folks want to store boats and recreational vehicles. Well, we created a marine vehicle establishment for the
Yeah.
storage of boats and we don't allow it. So I think that the Cube Smart and that, I forget the guy who started those originally, maybe that was before these regulations.
right, it was, yes.
So the question is, would the zoning commission entertain a text amendment to store boats and RVs in the industrial zone?
In the industrial zone, it seemed to me that we did allow storage of trailers.
But then we made section 53.
Right.
And then we spelled out marine vehicle establishment. So if you look at B4, it says that we allow for marine vehicle establishments, but when you go under the special standard of 53, that's why it's not allowed. So the regulation now wouldn't allow it on Research Parkway because it's not within 5,000 feet of the main navigable channel of the Connecticut River.
Right, the object was to keep the boats near the water.
Right.
So the question is, would we consider amending the regulations to allow the boats in the industrial zones?
The industrial zone is north of railroad tracks, across from the railroad station. Donnelly property, near the high school.
Research Park where the
Research
request.
Parkway. And out by Gladeview.
Right.
So it would be allowed up by Gladeview because it's probably within 100 feet or 5,000 feet of the main navigable channel. So the question is, if it's not, would we want to take Research Parkway and other industrial properties such as Donnelly's and the industrial zone and open it up for boat and RV storage?
I would say no. Instinct says no, but why? All right, so industrial zone property was historically reserved for industries that required equipment and stuff which added to the town's taxable property list. Storage of boats doesn't do that. So my guess is that the EDC would think less highly of boat storage than they do of a machine shop or something that has capital equipment indoors that's taxed by the town. Boat storage, are we out of boat storage? I mean, we're never out of, we have empty office space all over and retail space. And yet people want to build more of each. If we're out of boat storage and there's a need for more boat storage, then maybe, but if we're not out of, if all our boat storage spaces are not used, do we need more boat storage space? From this aspect of new land use in different areas of town where it was previously excluded and or taxable capital goods for the town.
No, but you got somebody with an empty building and it's in an industrial area. Is that,
So, but the
That's not
thing
what you
is,
said.
there's other uses in the industrial
Right.
zone.
Right.
This is just the property owner's kind of fix of something he can get in there easy to generate revenue because he doesn't have a tenant.
Right.
Not that I sympathize with him not having a tenant,
appreciate that, but we're not out of boat storage space in the town both there.
But it could be contractor storage, it could be a number of different uses in the industry.
We just changed that other area for
Mhm.
contractor storage. I agree with Bob.
It just doesn't seem to me to be the best use of industrial property that's not allowed today to open it up for that. For our highly, supposedly high value industrial property to be used for seasonal storage.
Right.
Cause realistically, it's a seasonal use.
Right.
Even if it's indoor only, just kind of throwing the idea out there, because I know there's actually a in-demand business for the storage, pretty much beautiful buildings that are heated and very well decorated for the high-end storage of cars. So you have a fancy car, you don't have a garage, you have a $200,000 car, you can kind of park it in that showroom. I guess they do it for boats too.
They do it for
Climate
both too,
control.
but it's also a very high-end part of the market, which is a smaller percentage. You're,
Essex Island Marina has, Essex Boat Works has a big red building. They store boats in it. Is this a building to store boats or is this outdoor storage?
It would be a building. This proposal is indoor right now.
Indoor storage.
it would mitigate, or it wouldn't. It's indoor storage that would overflow potentially into the parking lot.
I was just
So you're
last
not gonna
weekend,
entertain this, is that kind of where we're?
just last week at Longboat Key in Florida, they have big buildings with shelves which hold 14, 16-foot boats with outboard motors. Those are the ones I saw. There is an automated robot that goes up and down the aisle to remove the boat from the shelf to deliver it to the thing that's gonna put it in the water. And so that's where technology is taking us. That would seem to me to fit more within a certain distance of navigable water than putting boat storage or large things storage in industrial, non-water, not near water.
Yeah, my problem with all that is that there's nobody building machine shops.
It's a building with,
There's nobody building machine shops.
But we had somebody come into town called Blue Sky that had a concept
Oh, yeah.
that worked in that building. The state of Connecticut shut them down for whatever reason. But, so there was other business potential out there rather than a
Well,
machine
that
shop.
could be in Donnelly's too. There's nobody trying to get in there except the landscapers. I'm saying the property.
Donnelly's is full.
It's full.
Oh, what?
It's the Ocean
bought
State,
it.
that's their warehouse, yeah.
Yeah,
Where?
that for 2 or 3 years.
I'm just saying that if there's, in the industrial areas, there's people with properties that are empty. And they're looking for somebody to pay the rent.
Right, so I guess the thing is,
Indoors, I'm not talking about a yard full of,
but if then we'd have to change the regulation, which would open it up for new construction and more of that in the industrial side.
Do they wanna do boats and cars or just boats?
Boats, RVs,
They did.
cars.
Okay. And the regulation we have right now makes exceptions for boats.
It used to the old permits.
Okay.
So the old, so we permitted, I don't know, like 25 years ago, it may have allowed for that. But it's no longer allowed, all of those uses went closer to the marinas.
But only boats were taken out. Like right now, could they store cars and RVs and things like that inside, or all of it was taken out?
I don't think they couldn't store boats and RVs. I mean, they couldn't store cars and RVs, it would be just storage. We don't allow for car storage.
Do we allow for storage of other things in industrial zones?
So we have these are like self-storage.
Right.
So you go in there.
But we allow for self-storage, right? So like, why do we care if it's a car or a box or somebody's living room? I mean, maybe with the boats, it's different because they have to be near, it makes sense for them to be near the marina, so I'm just saying, why,
And then
why do
RV.
we care what's
What
in the
about
space?
RVs? I guess what are we getting into I'm just kind of,
Yeah.
I'm not throwing the question out.
You got a guy down the street, there's the Mystic Market, who's got a yard full of boats.
He has a permit. Yeah.
I'm just saying, it's,
No, he went, so this is the thing, there were certain things that were permitted years ago. Probably 25 years ago. I'm not trying to date myself, but
that's right.
that's why I bounced off of Bob. Bob and I go back to the old.
It's, if it's indoors and you're storing something, doesn't matter what it is to become warehousing. It's a warehouse full of stuff. Does it really matter what the stuff is?
Oh, that's what Casey's saying. So can you store your car in your living room in your storage unit? Your small car, very small, smart car with your living room.
Freight or materials, trucking terminal or business, commercial storage. It's inside the building, it's being stored in the building. The only thing that boats come on trailers and they're towed by big things and they have to fit down the street. Research Parkway's not the best street in the world, but,
But and I mean, the other thing too is it wouldn't, so say you did go with that interpretation, they still have to come back to the commission. Because they went from a biochar facility now to a storage facility.
But they would have to come with a tax amendment request for us to review.
Well, even if it was allowed, they'd still have to come to the commission for this thing. So they still need to, if the board was to say, okay, you can store your mini car in your living room and a self-storage unit or contractor storage unit or warehousing unit, they still would have to come to the commission anyway to change from the biochar facility they would have to go that way.
Well, I do think one other thing, sorry, I want to throw a wrench in it, but if we do let people like self-store cars, we run the risk that people start working on their cars in the units, and does that present like environmental safety issue, right, and it's not.
It's not allowed, but you never know what people are doing.
Right.
And they would
same thing with boats, everybody's been working their boat.
exactly.
I can tell you from operating a marina for a number of years, is that people will do everything they can. Until they get caught. People. Are responsible.
So Brenda, do you have anything? She's patiently listening. I'm just trying to get a consensus of what everybody's thinking here.
I agree with the proximity to the water with the boats makes sense, and the restriction, keeping it that way seems more logical.
And I agree with what Bob said, leaving industrial buildings reserved for industry so we can appreciate the taxes. So maybe.
So am I hearing that?
If it's all in the building, it seems to me that industrial would allow it. If as soon as it's for sale, and there's anything stored outside, subject to the 25% of the lot area for outdoor storage in the industrial zone. It's all inside the building and it's not sales related, warehousing. Yeah, if they have a showroom and they're selling it, then it's not industrial, then it's retail.
But it would not allow for boats.
Doesn't matter, if you're warehousing stuff, you can't sell it out of the warehouse at retail.
Right, but if we have a regulation that says storing of boats can go on the other side of town within the 5,000 feet of the navigable channel of the water.
You could store everything in there but a boat right now,
That's what I'm saying. That's what I think it.
right? That's what you're saying.
Storing the boat was, in my mind, an accessory to a boat, a place that sells boats. They sell boats and they store boats. Sort of an accessory use. If you put boats in a building as a warehouse and you're not selling them at retail, there is no accessory to that. It's just storing stuff in a building. You can't sell it, that's retail. You're just storing it.
So then it doesn't work for, then it conflicts with marine vehicle.
No, it's not, because it doesn't, that's my frustration is it doesn't specifically say that a marine vehicle establishment is retail. I think
No, I
it
know.
was intended to mean that, but it doesn't say retail.
I don't think it was, because
Well,
if I remember correctly, we talked about boat storage and we didn't want to have boat storage all the way up and down Route Lot 1, like when you cross the western border not to, and there's just boats everywhere all the way up to the road. And the marine vehicle establishment, back to the definition.
we're going to talk about display.
Marine vehicle establishment. Marine vehicle establishment for sale, repair, manufacturing, storage, or service of motorized or non-motorized boats, personal watercrafts, marine trailers, equipment, and.
That's the definition.
That's the definition, so it includes still. Storage, service, but a marine vehicle establishment is defined also to be the storage of boats. It doesn't say it's accessory or anything like that.
West, that we're allowed storage of boats, recreational vehicles and cars in our 25,000 square foot first floor plus has to be. That doesn't.
Well, and. All right, I say no. Marine vehicle establishments are within 5,000 feet of something, and storing boats in industrial outside of that is not permitted.
What about RVs and cars? What about RVs?
RVs, those are they'll fall in the other vehicles. Are they in here?
Mobile home? Motorized camper. Kind of looking at your housing or. So we're there. This is Mark. You need a place for your boat. John, do you need a place for your boat? Everybody goes in and then everybody's gonna end up working on their boat or their car or their RV. It's not as though it's Joe's RV center that needs extra space and needs to cram 50 RVs into a storage facility for future sale.
Will they have like individual, like how a self-storage would, it'll just be like they bring it there and then.
I guess it doesn't matter.
Well, I'm just wondering in the sense of. Like self-storage, I think of like you have your unit that you have access to and it's a lot easier to like go in there and. Work on stuff you're not supposed to work on and things like that, or is it like they're gonna meet you and then they're gonna like. Valet your vehicle, so to speak, you know what I mean, and like, then you're not as likely to, then they have more control over what's happening.
But I guess the thing is,
Or maybe it
say,
doesn't matter.
say it's one giant room or one little unit,
Right.
you could still go in to your
Yeah.
boat and work on your boat in there, even if you're not supposed to work on your boat in there, or your car, or your RV. I don't think you're gonna stay, maybe you won't be able to move it.
All right, so here,
Yeah.
yes. The frustrating part is 41.1.3 in industrial I district is permitted uses. And the exact same words are used in 41.3.3 on the backside of the same page as prohibited uses.
That was when we had under the.
So we have to pick one of those and get rid of it and keep the other one. Right? So after we get that,
41.
after we fix that,
Bob, 41.1.3.
41.1.3. Warehousing, wholesale businesses, building contractor, business or storage yard. 41.3.3. Warehousing or wholesale businesses, building contractor, business or storage.
We already fixed it, it's
Huh?
reserved now. It's reserved. We fixed it, the last round of rate
We
changes.
fixed, so the hard copy that I got.
All right, we'll have to get it for you,
I have
so.
it.
You took.
Mine says reserved.
Oh, okay,
If
great.
Did you-
All right, so
Did you swap
it's now,
out your?
wait,
Yeah.
it's reserved and prohibited and it's allowed? Oh, man, I thought it was gonna go the other way.
So what does that mean, reserved?
It means we've removed it. Okay,
Nothing there.
We fill it in with something
So this
else
is now reserved.
1
All right, here for RV storage, let's back up one reg, 41.3.2. Store or other building or structure where goods are sold or services rendered primarily at retail. If you own an RV and you want to get it stored somewhere, you're using a retail service. Unless you own a fleet of RVs and you want to get them stored somewhere, that may not be retail. But one by one, that's retail service. And that's still prohibited.
so is the answer that this use is not allowed, we've confirmed the use is not allowed? And that you don't really seem receptive to this regulation change, that's kind of what I'm hearing.
I think. I'm hearing the same thing too.
I just need to guide this person on what to do.
Right, we're not receptive to the regulation change.
Retail is not allowed in the industrial district, except for all of the exceptions that we've built up over time. Retail services. Service rendered primarily at retail. Because I have a service, if an individual comes in to purchase my service, that's retail. Retail is not allowed in the industrial district.
Yes, that's my answer.
That's your answer?
And I'll double check on the 41.3.3.
Oh, that's right.
Do you have it reserved? Okay.
I've got a filing problem.
So it happens, there's so many swaps and all of a sudden, for some reason, my section 53, it got printed, copied, so every other page is upside down and I keep meaning to change it. I'm like, yeah, I have to do this. And then I come to a meeting and I'm like. I think that's it.
That's it. Motion to adjourn,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.